He's back! Ladies and gentlemen, we missed him. I mean, where was Sportswire Radio? Where could we have been without the brute force Brad Weiss? In fact, it's so big his comeback that we said, you know what? Frig Rob Maraska, frig Chris Pizzea, frig Randy Dillon, frig Justin Gianelli, frig everybody else. We got to get the brute force solo right now for a little while because we got a lot to talk about, a lot of things off our chest. So, for all time's sake, without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one level sports show, the legendary SJC New York Golden Eagle, coach for our Level Up Basketball organization, also with the Long Island Nets, also the head coach for our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team, and still a member of our LI Brew crew. That is the Brute Force, Brad Weiss. My friend, how the hell are you?
Tom, I'm doing great. There's a lot of great news in the world of sports regarding my teams right now. So I'm a happy man, and feels like the old days, me and you, Tom Bryce. Nobody else here.
I'm happy about that, and certainly I am very happy to be with you, my friend. And definitely the old days would be good, and certainly I'm looking forward to this because, and Anthony Finkel's tuned in, he'll know the backstory on it. Some of the personal stuff going on at home, definitely not too thrilled about, but that's here nor there, and obviously he knows what I'm talking about. But obviously, very, very good to be with you, and I got to ask you, the Brute Force Brad Weiss, we speak so much about the NBA, and we'll get into that, but of course, there is news at home here for our beloved SJC New York Golden Eagles, and we have a head coach, and while he's not quite a familiar face, he almost looks like a familiar face, and I wanted to get your thoughts on AJ Uhl, who's the new head coach of our team, and hopefully I got his last name right, and hopefully it's the start of a continued momentum and success for our boys, and wanted to get your perspective on it very quickly before we move on to some Knicks and some other things as well in the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, let's just both say this. All right. I want to make sure, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but I believe it's.
I asked you first. I'm like, because I'm the worst. And Anthony Finkel, shout out, who's from Catalia Road right now with my very good friend, Jamie Sanders. I don't think he meant Saunders. Hopefully he meant Sanders. But yeah, I'm glad because I asked you beforehand. Do you think it's Uhl? Because I was like, is it Uhl?
Listen, Coach, if you're listening, for sure, we apologize. We got it wrong. But what we're not going to apologize about is the fact that we got another great coach from many sources that I've talked to. Coach Uhl is a guy, similar to Coach McSloy, a young coach who has experience as an assistant at multiple different institutions. He's grown up. He started as a high school coach. Even before that, he played in the Skyline Conference for Mount St. Mary's, very similar to Coach McSloy, who played at Maritime. So knows the conference well. Talking to people like my good friend Kevin Malee, I'll give him a shout out, one of our Level Up Long Island coaches who played alongside Coach Uhl at Mount St. Mary's. He had nothing but great things to say about him. He said he's a very knowledgeable mind, loves the game of basketball, is great with players. He's one of those guys who did a little bit of everything, and his coaching style is just like that, where he's looking to get the most out of the players, and he has a young, bright mind. That's going to really help these Golden Eagles. And the one thing that I think we all wanted was a guy who was going to come in and play to a similar role to Coach McSloy because of how well he did with the program. I think Coach Uhl has a lot of those same qualities, and the team should be really excited about that. A young mind who's very hungry, who has some experience now, was a player as well. I mean, I think it's a guy who I think, again, just like Coach McSloy, I think he got another one right. And I'm very excited to see what they can do with a really talented young group that's coming into this season for the Golden Eagles.
And almost returning the entire core of the team, except for a few notable exceptions. Obviously, Kevin O'Halloran, Gordon Shoya. We'll certainly see about anybody else. We'll leave that for another time. But I think how important is it to have a coach that has played and has played recently? Because I do think that is very important, especially at this level. You yourself also being an alum at SJC, and I think that it's important that we hired somebody that has gone in, is most recently played, and is somebody I think that can relate to the players. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. And not only that, as a player, Coach Uhl was a winner. At his time at Mount St. Mary's, they had a lot of success with that program. So he knows how to win. He knows how to win in the Skyline. And if you remember, Tom, he played in the early 2010s. So right after our Golden Eagles had won the Skyline Conference, he was young in the league, and after that, St. Mary's one of the best teams in the league. Led by him as well as Coach Malia. Once again, I'll give a shout out. I love Kevin, so I got to give him a shout out for sure. And also during that time as well, Kelly Dempsey was on the girls' side, and Kelly as well had nothing but great things to say about Coach Ewell. So I think it's very important that he was a player, that now he has that experience as a coach. And, it's pretty cool to hear because he came out of, college and became a high school coach. And, it kind of relates to my story that I'm in high school. And then, a coach gave him a great opportunity and he went to multiple other institutions and learned. And now he's ready for this coaching job. And he has all the traits that I think the school wanted. A young mind, similar to McSloy, very hungry, very, passionate about the game. And also is a Long Island guy. He grew up in Suffolk County in Comissaquah.
I'm glad you said that pronunciation rather than I did, because I would have butchered that.
I think I got it right, but I'm not a Suffolk guy. So people from Suffolk might be like, you did not get that right. But I'm pretty sure for my 4 years out in Suffolk, I got it right. Comissaquah out there in Suffolk. So he did grow up out here. He's still, out there. So I think that the fact that he could be around the program, the fact that he knows Long Island, similar to McSloy. You saw how the recruiting went because he knew this area, because he's from Kings Park. I think having Ewell in place, I think that's going to continue, and I think he understands how to, work with young teams. And I think that right there with the player, being a former player and being a guy who could be an influence on these guys right from the start, because he wasn't too long ago from being in their shoes, I think that's really going to help the team, especially a young team that, listen, when McSloy left, we all kind of wondered, what kind of minds are they going to bring in? But I think Coach Ewell fits, a lot of what McSloy had, which is going to really help the program kind of stay on the same page and take the next step.
Absolutely, and I think that we were all kind of like, I don't want to say on eggshells or on pins and needles, but I think we were all very curious on, I think, what the program would do. And I think it was very important to continue the momentum from the foundation that Coach McSloy laid in terms of where we were, obviously getting a huge win over Yeshiva, best run the program's had in just about a decade, and a number of different things, and I think keeping this core together. So I think obviously, clearly, I think we've done something right here in terms of the program, and obviously I think we're going to assume everybody's going to be back, including staff, including, of course, our very dear friends, Coach Jason Godieso and Billy Heenan, and also, again, if you like what you hear from the SJC Now New York Golden Eagles, you can follow them on Instagram at SJLI_MBBall. So I'm still getting used to that, the new Instagram. Also Twitter as well, SJLIMBBall, and find out more information on the program. We'll come back to the Golden Eagles in a little while, but I want to get your reactions to the NBA right now because, the brute force Brad Weiss, for a while, you've been certainly piling on the New York Knicks, and maybe for good reasons, maybe not so much in the offseason. I don't know. But it seems like all of a sudden now, I don't know, maybe if Leon Rose did have a plan after all, maybe if there was something that we didn't know about, there was tricks up the sleeve, who knows what. But the brute force Brad Weiss, it seems like, according to the money. Now, I don't believe in betting. I don't believe in the odds. I mean, I'm sure a guy like Justin Gianelli would maybe think differently, but it seems like to me, the brute force Brad Weiss, that the New York Knicks legitimately seem to have a shot and are in the discussion with Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell, obviously we know, New York Mets guy and New Yorker, everything else, but it seems like the Utah Jazz want to make a move, and certainly Donovan Mitchell's on the market, and apparently the New York Knicks very well may be front runners. And are you eating crow right now, the brute force? And what do you make of all this now?
Well, I'm definitely not eating crow, and I'll explain why when I talk about this topic. Because, first of all, they got to get the job done, and they have to get the trade done. But the big question is this the right trade to go after right now? Now, this is an interesting topic here because with Donovan Mitchell, he's an all-star caliber player. He's a great player. He's an exciting player. And that's one thing that the New York Knicks have not had for a very long time now. They don't have an exciting player who's explosive, who could get his own shot, who could be consistent. But, Donovan Mitchell brings all that electricity and buzz to your team. The issue with all this, Tom Bryce, is, one, what have we religiously talked about with the Utah Jazz? And I'm not saying it's all on Donovan Mitchell, but the Utah Jazz are
They haven't won anything. They haven't won a thing all these years. Yep. I
Tom,
know.
they're a great regular season team. They're fantastic in the regular season.
No question about
But
it.
what happens when they're in the playoffs? They don't do anything.
Joke.
They have not
It's
done
joke.
anything in the playoffs.
No.
And now, what does that sound similar to, besides the fact of good regular seasons, and most of the time we don't have them, but teams that can't win in the playoffs? The New York
Philadelphia 76ers come to mind. That's a team that always wins in the regular season, does nothing in the postseason. I mean, they come to mind.
Right. So here's the thing. I do think he can make us better. Now, the next part of this, Tom Bryce, is at what cost? Because you're talking about the potential of giving up 6 first-round picks. You're talking about giving up some of the young stars that we've developed, like Emmanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin, guys who are showing out right now in the Summer League, like Quentin Grimes and Miles McBride. All these guys who are young and, kind of, again, and we've talked about this religiously in the past, how we don't know what direction the Knicks are going in. They got guys on the roster like Randall and Fournier that show you that they want to win somewhat, but they want to be an average team. And then you got young developing players, which looks more like a team that wants to rebuild. But now it might be to just offset them for a great player. And will that be enough, Tom Bryce? Will it be enough? Because I like Mitchell, and I think between him, obviously Randall, and now Brunson with Barrett, I mean, they could be a very solid team in the Eastern Conference. I could eat a little crow by saying that maybe they can get out of the play-in now, because I wasn't sure about that. If they get Mitchell, I think they will get out of the play-in. But how much further do you expect this team to really get? I mean, they're not up to par with any of the other teams. So I do think for Knicks fans, everyone will be happy with Donovan Mitchell. But will the result change? Will we win a playoff series with him? That is the biggest question, because I don't know if we can definitely say that with Donovan Mitchell, we will win a playoff series. And that is the problem with the Knicks. Listen, when you bring in a star like that and you give up so many picks and young players, you expect to win in the playoffs and get potentially to the finals, all right? And I don't think we're even close to that. And even though Mitchell's a great player and he'll excite Knicks fans and he'll make people happy and we'll enjoy it for a little bit while, I don't think the result is going to change, and that's why I'm a little bit worrisome with it. But at the same time, seeing Donovan Mitchell in the Garden does kind of excite me to at least watch some more Knicks games again.
Absolutely, and I have a few questions, but let me get to Anthony Finkel because he's got some interesting comments, so let's get to some of those here. So he says, first of all, Mitchell asking price way too expensive, asking for 4 first-rounders. Then he says 6, as you brought up. I mean, so is that too expensive? Because, I was listening to the radio the last couple of days overnight, and I was listening to a couple of different people, and there was a point that Utah is looking for a lot, and there is one school of thought that says, well, if you can keep R.J. Barrett, do you just give up the draft picks because you don't want to lose R.J. Barrett, because you want to keep him as part of the core? You're assuming you're going to keep Randall because I don't think Utah is going to want to eat that contract, and they're not going to want him. So, I mean, if you put him, let's say, Mitchell coming here, and then you're not giving up R.J. Barrett, but you're giving up those draft picks, is it still too expensive of an ask? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
It's definitely still very expensive. But here's the issue with the fact that we're talking about 6 first-round picks. The reason why we're talking about it is because of the deal that was done a few weeks ago with Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert went to Minnesota, and Minnesota in the deal gave them 2 or 3 young players and 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, who I know is a great defensive player. He's been a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, but he's very limited offensively. He's just a pick-and-roll guy who could dunk at the rim, but he's a great defender. But that guy is not Donovan Mitchell. So they are going to say, well, because we got 5 first-round picks from Minnesota, we're not getting any less than 6 with Donovan Mitchell. I mean, I've seen the number go up to 7. Now, if you want to talk about how many picks the Knicks have in the first round through 2029, it's actually 8. So you basically bring up all your first-round picks until 2029. So it is a hefty load, and you would really have to think that Mitchell would be the guy to get you to more than just a playoff series. It would have to be more than that. But at the same time, the question is the cost too without the picks. So who are you giving up? Because a guy like Emmanuel Quickley is a guy I think needs to stay on this roster. He's a great player, young player. You actually have seen in the offseason Quickly and Mitchell hanging out together, which makes you want to keep them on the same team. If here's the thing that I'm going to say about this, Tom. This has been a proposed trade out there. If you can get rid of Evan Fournier in the trade, which the Jazz have been interested in just because the Fournier only has a couple of years on his contract.
Okay.
If you can offset like a guy like Cam Reddish and maybe like one of the two between McBride and Grimes, and then give them the picks, that makes it a little easier to deal with. But still, it leaves us questioning what this team really is in the Eastern Conference. Are they a playoff contender? Are they even going to get out of the play-in with Donovan Mitchell? There's a lot of good teams in the East. And even though this would significantly get us better, it would still leave us behind the top 5 or 6 teams in the East. But it would make Knicks fans excited. The problem is that as a Knicks fan, and everybody who's listening, I was born in 1997. All right, the last time the Knicks were even close and in the finals was 1999. Basically, my entire life, I have seen this team go nowhere. And I'm worried with Mitchell that if they acquire him, they're going to just be an average team that doesn't get that far in the playoffs for years to come. And that's what Knicks, James Dolan and everybody else wants us to be happy with, is just maybe a team that could compete. That's not what New Yorkers want anymore. New Yorkers want a team that can compete for a championship. And like I've said in the past, it might take till 2030 for us to finally consider that. Because even with Mitchell, it's just not the answer. And the thing is that I love him as a player. I love to have him on the team. But that's not going to get you anywhere further than a first round or a second round at best. And that's the unfortunate part. You would need more. And more is not that easy, especially when you're talking about the Knicks. Because free agents are really not wanting to come here that much. Mitchell
the Knicks really haven't had. Listen. The free agents in terms of like superstar free agents. Definitely.
No, we haven't gotten. We haven't gotten a free agent. You got to think about even going as far as Carmelo Anthony. We had a trade for him. Like the last time we got a free agent that maybe we were excited about a little bit was Amari Stoudemire.
Yeah, I feel like Amari Stoudemire had one really great season. He had the one MVP-like season, then he had another half, and then he got hurt, and he was never the same player.
Right. So, again, to kind of recap it again, we haven't gotten that top, best top free agent. We've always gotten the kind of the middle guy or the guy that, some teams want and others don't. We haven't gotten the top guy. And Mitchell would be a top caliber player. But with all the other holes we'd have to fix on the team, considering that this trade would also, give away some of our depth, and we all talk about how important, especially as a coach myself, how important depth is on a team. You could have an amazing starting 5. If you don't have anything coming off the bench, you're not going to be that good. And the best teams in the Eastern Conference have depth across their team. So the Knicks, again, they'll be better. They might excite us more. They might make me smile a little bit more. But they're not going to make me go crazy because ultimately it's the same result, Tom Bryce. It's going to be early exit in the playoffs at best.
All right. Some of those things are important. I want to come back to them, but I do want to get to some comments because there's some important people out there that want to get their chimes in. And I want to first bring, of course, John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group, who's back with us also after a couple of weeks. And I think he missed you last week, so he figured, you know what? I got Rob Maraska, Randy Dillon, God bless him, going on about NHL free agent signings. I'm going to go take the week off. The week before that, he wasn't with us, but he's decided he wants to come back, and we're glad to have him. And, of course, the Sports Authorities is a huge fan group of ours that does a lot for us on Facebook. So I want to thank John, as always, and make sure everybody joins the Sports Authorities group. And he says, when will the brute learn? James Dolan has a master plan we all know that keep the faith. Then he says, New Yorkers want James Dolan. I don't know necessarily about that. Our very good friend Carlos Arturo Chavez II comes back and says, Knicks already denied deal. Well, there has been, I think, a snag in some of the talks. I think basically that also could be a point, what Carlos is referring to. No way, I'm not excited. Yeah, Brad kind of laid out a mixed feeling on it. Knicks have been helping other teams become champions since the 80s. Yeah, I guess. I mean, the Knicks just haven't won anything, so does that really mean they helped anybody? GM and coach is not up to par to be the next level. Well, I mean, listen, Tom Thibodeau is not a bad coach. Mitchell has not played any time away from a good coach and another star player in Rudy Gobert. Well, I mean, if you make that to the point that he hasn't won anything, that's a very fair point. Why spend on those draft picks and move Barrett? Anthony Finkel says, I miss John Gonzalez. Happy he's back this week. So am I. But that's a great point that Carlos brings up. And I want to go back to it because, again, you incur all this capital, right? The Knicks, we know historically, have struggled with draft picks. Right? The Knicks have struggled when it comes to rebuilding. You've got all these picks. Now, I get it. Donovan Mitchell, could he change the franchise? Maybe. I don't know. But to your point, we went through this with Carmelo Anthony. We went through this years ago where we traded the farm. We thought we had lightning in a bottle. He was also a local guy, born in Brooklyn. He had Lala, obviously, who was also from here. Also, she was the MTV VJ. She was a hottie and everything else. And it was the match made in heaven, right? And Carmelo played well statistically and from individual level, but we had minor success. We could have that same thing happen here with Donovan Mitchell. Individually, a great player, a great scorer. But, do you risk the farm here? I mean, you finally got all this draft capital. I mean, there's a point. I mean, and Carlos is also making the point that he didn't like the Melo move either. And in retrospect, you can't disagree. I mean, is this comparable to a Carmelo Anthony situation where it could also just totally backfire once again?
Yeah, I really think it is. Very comparable. Now, the thing is that what I will say, because I was in high school when they acquired Carmelo Anthony, and at that time, because of how many years of bad basketball we had seen from the Knicks, I mean, we were watching David Lee as the star of the team for many years. It was nice to finally see a star player in a Knicks uniform, especially a star player that wanted to play for the team. That's the one thing that excites you about Mitchell, is that you have a star player that wants to play for you. And that's the crazy part about the Knicks, because that Tom Bryce should be what most players want to do. They should want to come and play in New York for the Knicks. All right, but ultimately they don't. We all know the reasons why. And as much as John Gonzalez wants to give me all this nonsense about how we should trust James Dolan and James Dolan, pray for him and all this nonsense. All right, James Dolan is the reason why these players don't want to come here. He's one of the big reasons why. Okay,
but it's so interesting to me because, again, and I want to give a shout out to Jamie Sanders, who's tuned in, because Jamie was over my house a couple of days ago with Anthony Finkel. And Jamie, I'll ask, how's the air conditioner doing for you? But I mean, listen, in hockey though, the Rangers with James Dolan, the point's always made that people seem to want to come here. They want to play here. But why with the Knicks? Why don't you think that they want to play here for the Knicks, the NBA side of it with James Dolan? Because I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Well, I personally think and again, we spoke to Randy Dillon about this, but I personally think that James Dolan interferes a lot with the Knicks and doesn't as much interfere and trusts more of his people with the Rangers, and he gets the right people in place. With the Knicks, we obviously know he's been a disaster in getting the right people in place. I mean, we all, thought that Phil Jackson was going to be the answer, and that was not the right choice. We're talking about, guys like, right now with Leon Rose. We thought he would help us. He hasn't done nothing. I mean,
technically, we got 8 draft picks, got 8 first-round picks.
That's what we want to say right now. But what are we going to do with those picks? And like you said, Tom, throughout our history, we find a way to mess up. And again, I said it this year. I think we messed up. Now, even though some people will be like, well, even though we didn't get any picks in the first round, we did accumulate more picks, which could help us get Mitchell. At the same time, though, you have to understand, right, that there are young players on this team. And, is it going to be, well, the Knicks want to become a young, team that wants to develop? Or right now, when they're thinking about trading, they're thinking about being a team that has more experience, right? That has more winning, ready to win now type of players.
I don't think they have ready to win now players. I don't think they have any of that.
And that's where the understanding with the Knicks is just not right. And we talk about all the time with the direction of the team. They don't understand. They think that bringing Mitchell in is going to give us a team that could win right now and get us over the top. Our team is not good enough right now for that.
But you also did say that if you brought in Donovan Mitchell, and I have a bunch of comments, and I'll get to them in a second. But if you did bring him in, we would not be a play-in team. Would that be fair to say?
No, I think we actually would be a playing
You
team.
think that Donovan Mitchell still with the core of R.J. Barrett, Jalen Brunson, and let's say Julius Randle is still a playing team?
I think so. I mean, listen, Tom. Let's talk about it right now. You got Boston, who's still going to be one of the top teams.
And Boston's making moves. Yep. All right.
Milwaukee's still one of the top teams in the East.
Champions last year. Yep.
Miami's still going to be there. Okay.
Philadelphia.
That's 4 right there. Okay.
Would you say Toronto?
I still like Toronto. I really do. And let's see what happens, because right now they might be the top players for Kevin Durant if he gets traded.
And then would you throw Chicago right now over the Knicks if you had Donovan Mitchell? Would you throw Chicago?
Well,
They've got a nice
this
trio.
is why you might have an argument for that last spot, because you got teams like Chicago, who was there last year.
Atlanta. You know what? I would throw Atlanta right in there also, right above us.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, Atlanta's there. I mean, I haven't given this team enough credit. A team like the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, this is a team that had a very good season. They got better too this past off season, because they're just getting healthier. Simply.
All right, so maybe you convince me then. Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, R.J. Barrett, maybe not higher than 6th. Although I heard people saying they'll be in 6th.
6th seed, it would be nice. But those top 5 teams, and you could argue with Toronto and Atlanta, but I do think both of those teams are right now still better than us, even with that.
So theoretically then, and I'll get to the comments very quickly in a second, but so then almost from what you've told me, that it's not worth it. It's not worth it to do it then. You've told me, and you've told everybody, listen, and we'll get people to chime in a second, because I got a load of comments here. You've basically said that getting Donovan Mitchell doesn't help you win a championship. It doesn't help you get you out of the play-in, and it doesn't do anything differently than the core that you have. That's what you basically told me.
Because that's basically exactly what it is.
I'm asking your opinion.
All I'm saying, really, and this is the sad part, is that just 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, Tom, I said that they might make the play-in and might get out of the into the first round of the playoffs. Now I'm saying I think they're going to get in the play-in. So the might for the play-in is now over. But I do think that they most likely will get to the first round if they get into the play-in. I think they have a good chance. But then after that, it's back to the same result we talked about 2 weeks ago. I don't think they're going to get past the first round. Because ultimately, Tom, 7 or 8 seed, right, you're going to have to go on the road and maybe play Boston or Milwaukee or Miami. Like, these teams are very good basketball teams.
I think no question. The Eastern Conference, the depth in the Eastern Conference has improved dramatically. I've got a ton of people tuning because people want to hear us talk basketball.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for supporting.
And a lot, because people hear baseball and they hear hockey and they want to go take a nap. But when it comes to basketball, they get fired up. So Carlos Otoro Chavez says he thinks that the Mitchell move is worse. Jamie Sanders, again, want to give him a nice, huge shout-out. Anthony Finkel says no, keep the farm, meaning keep all the picks. John Gonzalez is funny. The last time there was excitement at MSG, it was called Linsanity. No, but the year afterwards, they won the division. Carlos says Barrett has potential to be better than Mitchell. Possibly. I mean, it's hard to say. And Jamie Sanders gives me a nice shout-out and emphases, exclamation parts. David Lee didn't win with Golden State, but David Lee was like, what was he, the 8th man on the team? I mean, do I really count? He wasn't the same role he had with the Knicks.
He was a role player off the bench.
Yeah, you compare. That's like I was almost like when Mitch Richmond won a championship with the Lakers. I mean, yeah, he was on the team, but he wasn't the 20-plus point a game scorer. But he won a championship. Listen, Andre Iguodala won some championships with the Warriors, but he wasn't the same player with the 76ers. I mean, yes, he won, but different roles.
Right.
John Gonzalez says bring back Jeremy Lin. Is Jeremy Lin playing like somewhere like overseas? I would have to.
I'm pretty sure he's playing somewhere outside.
And Anthony Finkel makes a good point, though, which goes back to what you said. What has Mitchell won? And I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you.
Nothing. And here's the thing: people have brought this topic up to me as well. Is it necessarily Mitchell's fault that they've won nothing? No, because here's the thing. I want to say this quickly. If everybody remembers the series a couple years ago in the bubble where they went against the Denver Nuggets specifically.
That was a wild series. That was wild, that series. I remember watching it. We were talking about it on Sportzwire.
between Mitchell and Murray, I mean, they were going for like 40, 50 a game. So
I was
Donovan
going to
Mitchell
say,
has,
they both, one of them got 48. Was it Jamal Murray at like 51 or something like that?
yeah.
Or the other way around?
No, they went, and I mean, Mitchell has performed in the playoffs. He has came and shown up. But ultimately, he hasn't made enough winning plays, and he hasn't gotten exactly the support from the team to help him prevail. The question is, though, Tom Bryce, is that any different with the Knicks? Is there anyone on the Knicks that you say, oh, well, they're going to be the reason? We're talking about, okay, Jalen Brunson, a player who's a nice player, who has performed. But he's kind of like, if I had to go to the Utah Jazz, he kind of reminds me of a little bit better version of a Mike Conley. And
I knew you were going to say that. I knew that was coming,
like, a little bit of a combination of Clarkson and Conley. Too similar. Then you got the man who I've religiously talked about on this show, Julius Randle. What does he do when it matters most? He does this. He chokes. All right, that's what he does.
Yeah, Julius Randle reminds me right now of Francisco Lindor, where you look at the stats, you say, wow, you know what? He was a good player. But then when you watch him on a day-in-and-day basis, kind of similar to a Francisco Lindor, you're like, those numbers, they're very overrated.
Well, the only thing I'll say with that, Tom Bryce, is, and I do see the comparison with the numbers, but Lindor has been really, affecting us winning games, where Randle has a little bit more of an effect of when we actually lose games. Now, the one thing I will say, Tom Bryce, though, to back up this point about Randle, is, we always religiously talked about in his years with the Knicks how he cannot be the best player on your roster. If he's the best player, he's not going to perform. The one thing that could potentially actually go well for Randle is if Mitchell came on the team, just because Mitchell would be the best player and Randle would go back to being the second or third option, which is what he would fit best with.
Well, that's why I think in one sense, and we have Justin Gianelli joined us, of course, the host of the Baseball Banter Show. Obviously, good to see Justin as always, and I have a few other comments and some funny ones here, but I'll get to those in a second. But, I mean, that's in one sense you could also make that argument that, Donovan Mitchell does maybe make the Knicks team a little bit deeper because, again, if you don't have Mitchell, you're relying on Brunson and Randle to kind of shoulder the load. Now he kind of takes the responsibility off. That might be the devil's advocate point.
Yeah, but again, all of that, and, I know Justin will have a feeling on this as well, but all of that, right, to get Mitchell with all those different things that you would have to give up, it might just not be worth it because, again, the spot that we'll be in is ultimately the same spot, which will probably be an early exit in the playoffs.
Although Knicks fans, I think, might take it because they want the star power. I mean,
listen, and this is the last point I want to make, by the way, Tom. Because I want to get back to the Carmelo Anthony conversation that we talked about earlier.
Yes, I'll get to that after I get to comment.
The team, right, we were all excited because we just wanted to see a star player in the Garden. We just wanted to see a player that excited us, right? We thought there was a chance to win, but we just wanted to see an exciting player. But unfortunately, Tom Bryce, I mean, I didn't really live in the 90s where, the Knicks were one of the top things around here.
Oh, I remember very well. I remember as a kid, listen, when the NBA was on NBC every weekend, every Sunday afternoon and morning.
But why was that the case, Tom Bryce? Because you knew that they were a winning team. When you look at the Knicks now, it's like, all right, they might be a little exciting with some players. They're not going to win.
Well, to your point, the Knicks had depth. This team wouldn't have depth from what you're giving up. That's the difference.
Exactly.
So let me get to a bunch of comments before I get to Justin. John Gonzalez wants to remind me to mention the Detroit Pistons. Okay.
He wants to hear them in the playing conversation. We've said this already, John.
Yeah, they have a shot. I mean, look, everybody has a shot. Carlos Otoro Chavez says, in the world, according to Carlos, the plan, Brunson, Baggett, Obi, Grimes, Robinson, and Quickly are the future. And keep the youth movement. Use the G League and move up in drafts to find 2 to 3 more players. Stop the jersey chasing and look to sell tickets. Knicks, just stop doing it. Anthony Finkel gives a shout out to Justin Gianelli, and John Gonzalez says Mr. Gianelli has appeared. And Carlos points out if you take Lindor from the Mets, they don't win and have defense to try to help ground ball hitters. But in terms of statistic numbers, though, Randle and Lindor is a similar comp. And he says Randle was a reach, and it shows. Yeah, I mean, listen, Randle got excited, and I got a good one here. Bradley Beal might help. You like that Bradley Beal name? And I'll get Justin in after that. You like that idea, Bradley Beal, or is it like the same type of situation you think there, Brad?
I actually think it's very similar in a way.
Okay. Tell us why.
Because, listen, first of all, they're very similar players, Mitchell and Beal. A little bit different. Maybe Mitchell's a little bit more exciting over the rim than Bradley Beal, but they both can score at the same level. Whether it's shooting from the perimeter, getting to the rim, they're both good players. And the one thing you could argue, maybe to John's point, is that maybe getting a guy like Bradley Beal might actually cost a little bit less, but it's still going to be a lot. And it's still going to, again, to the point that I keep making, it's still going to get you to a similar spot, which is maybe the first round, and then exit. Because, again, there's just so many good teams in the East. Look at Bradley Beal's situation in Washington, right, which is very similar to what the Knicks have gone through the last couple of years. The Wizards and Knicks have kind of had the same records, and it's pretty much the same situation.
That's fair.
Because Beal might be a better player on the Wizards, but he has nothing around him, right? Randall and Barrett.
They had Westbrook a couple years ago.
Well, that was only for a year, and they actually made the playoffs that year. So, again, Bradley Beal would help. But again, Mr. John Gonzalez, where is that taking us? Because is it going to help us get out of the play-in? Like, is that what we're excited about? And this is the problem now as Knicks fans. Like I said, when you guys were talking in the 90s, right, it was about winning and winning at the end of winning championships. Now, the thing with Knicks fans is, can we win and maybe get to the playoffs? That has become the top accomplishment, and that is not good enough, especially in New York City, right? This is not what we're going to – this is not Oklahoma City. This is New York City. We're sick and tired of not winning any damn championship. The Knicks haven't won a championship since 1973.
Oh, listen, the only person alive that saw the Knicks win a championship who's not here is Rob Maraska. Rob Maraska probably remembers the day he was sitting in Bobby Tats, I'm sure, the Pinstripe Chronicles. He don't even like basketball. I mean, there is a point that obviously, listen, I mean, as a Knicks, if you're a Knicks fan or from New York, I mean, even in the 90s, you were disappointed that the Knicks didn't win, but you were getting deep into the postseason. Now, you look back, at least, because I'm a little older than you, Brad, I go, wow, I really wish I saw New York basketball where the Knicks were going deep into the postseason and, going into 2 finals in 5 years and a couple of other conference finals appearances. And I want to give a shout-out to, of course, Coach Jason Facina of our beloved Five-Town Sound women's and men's soccer teams. And Coach is funny. Brad says, go New York, go New York, go. If we get an 8 seed, they'll have a parade. Yeah, I think we all three of us could agree that Knicks fans will probably have a parade at this point if they get to an 8 seed. Even the Mets, even we're all Mets fans, even as Met fans, I don't think we would throw a parade.
I got to say this. First of all, shout out to Coach Facina because he's the man. Second of all, he is right on point. I mean, do you remember what happened after we won one playoff game against the Hawks? I mean, people were going
we had to shut the city down, and we had not for COVID mandates, but literally to shut the city down because people were so happy. And also want to give a birthday wish to Coach Facina, of course, and his beautiful family, because obviously there's an important birthday there for Coach. So I want to make sure that I recognize Coach and, of course, all the great things that he does for us, and giving a very, very happy birthday here to certainly his wife there, his beautiful wife there. So happy birthday to his wife. And I hope I got that right, Coach. I feel like I read it the right way on Facebook. So let me know if I didn't. But do happy birthday nonetheless. And also, Carlos points out that Mitchell was surrounded by better teams. Yes, he definitely was. There's no question about that. And Coach says I was correct. So I'm glad, because lately I feel like I've been needing to get my eyes checked for other things. So I'm glad that happy birthday again to Coach's beautiful wife. Obviously, Coach's beautiful wife allows Coach to come on the air with us and speak. So we want to definitely give a shout out. And Carlos also says Knicks organization has spent millions and fans have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to see winners, and we have been short. And John Gonzalez says not even Anthony Fakel could clean up the Knicks. That was the best one yet.
That's great.
I got to get you in here because I've been waiting. And I obviously always love, because you know a lot about basketball, and I feel like I can get your perspective. So watch it from afar, and I'll come over to Durant because I want to talk some Nets also, because there's a lot that's going on in Nets land on the other side of the bridge here, connected by the Manhattan Bridge, obviously, if you're taking the subway, for those of us like Anthony Finkel and Jamie Sanders. But, I mean, Justin, what do you make of this whole Donovan Mitchell situation? I mean, do you think he goes somewhere? Do you think Utah's asking for a lot? I mean, give me your thoughts on all this.
Well, first of all, it's good to be back here. Second of all, I mean, to be honest, if you're Utah, what was kind of reported as the offer, which I think was 4 players, and I think 4 first-round picks or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
talking about it.
you know, it's the start because of how good Donovan Mitchell is. He's a 25-year-old player.
Yep.
He's a really talented player, but you know, Brad's right. I mean, how much further does he really take the Knicks? Because especially thinking about how much you're going to have to thin out the roster of current players, because Utah at this point wants to shed some salary. I mean, look at the salary they got off the books when they traded Rudy Gobert to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Patrick Beverley's likely a buyout candidate if he hasn't been already. Um, you know, they're looking for a fresh start, and I mean, everything has made too much sense for Donovan Mitchell to not go to the Knicks, but I don't know that we could call it a slam dunk just yet. Now, there's multiple things working for the Knicks right now. The Knicks have a ton of assets, and they might have the best package of assets in the league.
Right, right.
Aside from Utah, because of what they just got back in the Gobert trade,
Obviously.
but obviously Utah's not dealing with themselves. But, and plus Donovan's from Elmsford, New York. So
Yep.
he's a local guy, and he spends his summers out here. He lives in New York in the off season. So everything makes too much sense. The only thing that really changes things is that Donovan Mitchell could be the start of attracting more stars to the Garden. And because it seems like the biggest issue has always been acquiring the big time.
Well, we talked about it before you came on in terms of marquee free agents. The Knicks, the only one they've really landed, I want to say, in the last 20 years was Amari Stoudemire. And that was, what, a year and a half of greatness you got out of him? The Knicks really haven't had that big fish.
And
The
you
Nets
know
at
what?
least have had some big games. The Nets have
Right,
had
and
some
I don't even count Carmelo Anthony because he.
Yes, we mentioned it was a trade.
Because he like Donovan Mitchell is from New York.
Yep.
You're playing at Syracuse, playing Big East games at Madison Square Garden. You knew that was an eventual fit for the Knicks,
Right.
and they made that trade with the Nuggets, and they were able to have Melo for a few years. But you're right. Other than Amari Stoudemire, how many stars have really been attracted? Everybody calls New York the Mecca of basketball, but it's really the Mecca as an opponent, because you play one game there, you have your big game, and you go about your day. You don't want to be roasted by playing there every night.
Tough environment.
Yeah, I mean, the media has everything to do with it. The social media world that we live in today, and the fact that it seems like Mitchell would want to be in New York makes a ton of sense. Now, the thing is, the difference here is this looks like Utah's doing, not Donovan Mitchell asking for a trade, because Donovan Mitchell, to our knowledge, has not formally requested a trade out of Utah.
Right.
And what my biggest thing is why is Utah not using their assets to acquire somebody to play alongside Donovan Mitchell?
Interesting.
Why are they going full rebuild immediately just because you traded away Rudy Gobert? Now, because we know that after COVID and everything, things got very tense between the two, and you could clearly tell that the relationship was fractured between the two. Now, obviously, lots have changed. Quinn Snyder stepped down. Danny Ainge trades Rudy Gobert, and you're clearly seeing a shift in thought process from the Utah front office. I don't know that I would trade Donovan Mitchell if I'm Utah. And what's being held up in all of this is the Kevin Durant situation.
Which is what I was going to get into next, because that's very, very intriguing. And
because if you trade Donovan Mitchell first, if Utah trades Donovan Mitchell first, and let's say his haul is more than Rudy Gobert's, then there's zero chance Kevin Durant gets traded.
Interesting. Interesting points here. Let me get to a few other comments. Coach Vicina says if the Knicks get Mitchell, they're probably, as you just pointed out, probably between a 6 and an 8.
At best.
Yeah,
At best.
he says 6 and an 8. I was hearing people that were saying, "Oh, they're going to be a 5 seed. Don't worry about it. They're going to be 5.
The East
They're
is
going to
too
be
good.
4."
The East is too good. And
He
even
just ran down the teams, and he said he didn't think we ran him down. He thought, what, 7th? I think we had the Knicks kind of pegged, Brad. I think after running them down,
6 at best, but that was a reach. I think 7 or 8 is realistic. And like I said, with Mitchell, the only thing that would change in my mind would be, because when me and Justin and you were talking about this a couple weeks ago, we said the Knicks might get in the play-in. The only difference now is that I think they would get in the play-in, right? But from there, it kind of is the same story. They would probably get in the play-in as a 7 or 8 seed. But will they get out of the play-in? And then when they get to the first round, how much further are they going?
Well, I mean, you can look at it in one standpoint here is if you get into the playoffs, you get in, maybe you get lucky. I mean, that's always the theory like in the NHL. Well, you make the playoffs, maybe you get lucky. You get Donovan Mitchell gets red hot in the series. Maybe you win a series or two. That could be the one school of thought. Knicks fans are dying for any type of success. New York Knicks fans, listen, we're all Mets fans, and Knicks fans are even more starved than Mets fans. Even the Jets. As Jet fans, we've all seen at least a couple of championship games, some division titles, some success here and there. But the Knicks, it's literally been category. You said it. You were born in 97, right? So when you were born, the New York Knicks had won 57 games that season, right? At that point, the Knicks were in the peak of the glory run that they had. And at that time, I remember it being, the Knicks, they had failed. They had failed because they hadn't won a championship. They had failed because they couldn't beat Michael Jordan. And now we look back and we say, wow, oh my God, I wish we went back to the run of the 90s where you had 50-plus wins every year, deep in the postseason. But that was considered then a failure. So those are some interesting points here. And Anthony Finkel says, never forget Rudy Gobert brought COVID to the NBA, classic NBA. Maybe, I guess.
But you know what? And you know what, though? Honestly, Brooklyn's the biggest question mark in the Eastern Conference.
Well, that was my next point because I want to talk about Kyrie Irving now, who says he wants to stay with the Brooklyn Nets. And I think, Justin, you just touched upon Kevin Durant. And then does that mean Kevin Durant staying or here or what happens now? I mean, this is all a very quagmire.
Well, first of all, the Kyrie Irving situation clearly was something from the Lakers camp and was not Kyrie driven. Clearly, okay. Kyrie's opted in, and said, "I'm going to play for the Nets, regardless of whether or not Kevin Durant's here or not."
Okay.
My job is to, my plan is to honor this contract of opting into the 1 year.
Okay.
And so, Kyrie's going to be on this basketball team this year, and whether or not he can, talk to Kevin and say, Kevin, listen, let's run this back, man. We could do this, because I'm sorry if Kyrie Irving could somehow, some way, and I know this is asking for a lot. If I can actually get a full season's commitment with Kyrie, and you're pairing Kevin Durant and Kyrie,
then that should be a 50-win team. I would think.
I'm sorry, there's few who could stop them in a full season.
Absolutely.
But the hardest thing is you can't fully buy into that, because in 3 years we've seen nothing but stops and starts.
103 games Kyrie Irving has played as a Brooklyn Net. That's
exactly.
It. 103 games.
From the injuries and the not going to the COVID bubble the first year, to the disappearance and then being at a sister's birthday party or something like that, to the COVID vaccine this year, not being able to play home games, and then he didn't even play really at all the first half of the year.
Right.
Yeah, it's really been stops and starts for Kyrie Irving, but there's still no denying how talented these two are, and how well that this team can play when the right set of pieces are around them. Now, the roster was poorly constructed, and some of the moves, the Royce O'Neal move's an okay move. They've got some better pieces. You hope Joe Harris is back for a healthy season. But the Nets are the biggest question mark of all, because I don't see a team being able to offer enough for Kevin Durant.
Well, Kevin Durant you're talking about a top 2 or 3 player in the entire league.
And
And what do you fairly get for that?
you don't. You're not going to, and it's really going to be about how badly does Kevin Durant want out of the organization, and is anything repairable? Because if it is, then you know what? At this point, as much as I called him a clown a couple of weeks ago and I said get off my team, at this point, let's run it back.
Well, you know what? To be
I
fair,
don't prefer to. I still think he's soft, and I think he should leave. But you know what? It seems like the Nets obviously shouldn't just get rid of him. They need to be able to get what they feel is fair.
but you said something interesting in the fact that, listen, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant have not played a full season together. They have not. They have statistically not played a full season together. I have a bunch of comments in here. Let me get to some of them here. Carlos Otoro Chavez says Nets don't have any questions. You cannot move those guys with those hefty contracts. Durant only has like 3 more years, and his health is in question with his knees and his hips. It's
fair.
It's all talk for those 2 guys. The fact that the Nets did not sign Kyrie after this season was ridiculous because they made it media fodder. Anthony Finkel chimes in and says, Dragic had a very telling quote about the Nets. He said it was terrible. It wasn't about the team. It was about individual stats. Come on, Brute. You know a team can't win like that.
He's not wrong. I read those quotes from Goran Dragic. I forgot where he signed, but he did address that. He did address that when he was talking to the media. And it is very telling. But at the same time, hey, I wonder if a trade could work out where when the Nets trade Durant, you make it a 3-team deal.
I want to get
Rice
on that before I move on here and shift into baseball for a second. But Anthony Finkel did have a good comment, and we're also joined here from the host of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rival Show, Chris Bizet. Obviously, Chris is back with us. Always good to have Chris. We'll get into some baseball here for quite a bit because I actually do want to talk some Yankees, Mets, some different perspectives on that. So I do want to jump into that, and Chris is obviously a great expert on that. But the proof was, Anthony Finkel did have a very important comment because you were a player. He did address you, and talk to me about that and some of those comments and, just how important those are.
Yeah, so based on what Justin said and what they're saying, listen, I personally, the more the days go on, and I know there's still plenty of time until obviously the Nets have to make a deal, but they don't have to make a deal. That's the thing. So we're all talking about, how much longer until they're going to make a deal. Well, they don't have to do anything, and right now, there isn't a deal out there that would excite me if I'm the Nets. There really isn't anything. And the one thing, to get to the other big news of the week in the NBA is the DeAndre Ayton situation, where, Ayton gets the big offer sheet from Indiana, and Phoenix goes and matches it. And the one thing that was out was that potentially there was a 4-team trade with Durant, and Ayton was going to go to Indiana. And, like Justin said, Donovan Mitchell might have been involved with the Jazz.
And he now cannot be traded until January 15th.
Right.
And he can't be traded without consent for a full calendar year.
Right.
So DeAndre Ayton is not leaving Phoenix.
No. And you know what? I think Phoenix right now, clearly with matching DeAndre Ayton's offer, basically said, we are not getting Kevin Durant. We're focused on the team that we have right now, which is, just a few years ago was in the finals and really, is still one of the elite teams in the Western Conference. So I think that right there tells you where is Durant going. There isn't much out there left, for the Nets. I said it earlier. If there's any place that I think might have a chance at him, I think it's still the Toronto Raptors. That's really, one of the only places that I would even give a thought to.
The holdup is Brooklyn wants Scotty Barnes.
Right, and Toronto doesn't want to give him up. So, Again, that's the only way this might budge a little bit. But that's really the only team. Like, And still with that, you might need a third team to get a deal done.
Probably.
So I don't think that there's anywhere for him to go. And like Justin said, at this point, Kyrie Irving has said he's going to return to the team and wants to return to the team. So, I mean, I think at this point, Kevin Durant, and we all know about all this media nonsense that they came out and they want all the attention and the spotlight on these guys. I think there might be a very good chance that down the road, we might hear Kevin Durant come out and say, I'm just going to stay in Brooklyn.
By
All
the way,
this drama, we're going to get nothing out of it.
I know, right?
That's
By the
so
way, I want
crazy.
to point out because somebody brought up Bradley Beal before.
Yes, that
He
was
just- he just got-
John
he just
Gonzalez
got-
brought him up. That's
He
right. John
just
Gonzalez.
signed that max extension of 5 years, $251 million.
Correct.
All right, so let me get to a funny comment to kind of bring in Chris Bizet because Anthony Finkel has a question directed to you, Chris. He says, Chris, how was Beantown? He said, nice pictures.
It was awesome, man. Boston's a great town. It's picture New York City, clean, doesn't smell, and has hardly no homeless people.
So you're basically telling me that my mother might be right after all, and that her wanting to move out of New York City seems like she's ahead of the curve because the rest of us that are stuck here in New York City are pretty much like peasants. So I
Yes,
guess
we are the peasants, all
yeah.
of us.
probably as a New York City person, I'm sure that is the case. But the second person I heard that went to Fenway or near Fenway in the last week. Also, John Gonzalez is funny and says Chris has a lot of explaining to do tonight, sitting at a Boston bar, drinking beer in a Boston Red Sox glass. So
Yeah, that beer did not taste good at all that night.
I was gonna ask. So how a Red Sox glass and a beer? I mean, that's got to be so weird.
I can't request glass. I can only request a drink. So
Oh, okay, fair enough. In fact, it was funny. I was speaking to somebody else I actually know whose grandson is playing Little League Baseball. They were traveling. A team on Staten Island were traveling. They actually play, I think, just outside of Fenway Park. And I asked him, because he's a Yankees fan like you. So I said, I've never been to Fenway Park, but I hear that you go there at like 11 o'clock in the morning. You walk around the park, and the bars are open, and people are just like, they're all ready for the game. It's almost like a tailgate experience. But I said, if you're a Yankees fan, do you actually go into the park with your Yankee shirt on? And he said, absolutely not. You don't go anywhere in Boston with a Yankee shirt. Was that the experience that you had, or what was it like? Maybe any different for you?
not really. I felt like the people there were nice. I went to Fenway, but it was for a tour of Fenway.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but and I was joking around with the tour guide. She was a woman from Jersey, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but we had some good laughs. I was kind of throwing in jibes at her about the Yankees a little bit to keep it.
I
loose.
would have loved that. And I know the Talking Rivals page on Twitter, which, of course, you can follow them on Twitter, Talking Rivals. I saw the, I guess, Red Sox and Yankees kind of statue that was posted. I was thinking, man, one day you and Patrick got to go to a game together. That's what I want to see.
That would be cool.
Happen. That would be one of those cool things. But we're on Sportswire Radio here, speaking all things related here to the world of sports with some of my guys here. That includes Chris Bizet, of course, from the aforementioned Talking Rivals show and the Liftoff Jet show. Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter, and he's back. That's the brute force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC New York Golden Eagles, so Level Up, Long Island Nets, LA Brew Crew, which is still a thing, and our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team. And I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Brights. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, I highly encourage you give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. And I want to thank everybody that has, because I think we're up to over 400 followers now, 300 plus likes on the page. So I really want to thank everybody all around the world for their support. Also, sportnarium.com/player, where you can listen to us on our flagship 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our content, including great shows like the Talking Rivals, the Liftoff Jets, the Baseball Banter, and many, many other shows, including the Hockey Fan Chat with Randy Dillon. He'll be on later. So I look forward to all of that. Also, we'll have some live music played throughout the week, and I'll also be streaming once again throughout the weekend. So all great stuff here on sportnarium.com. Also want to thank Tobacco Road Sports Radio and Desmond Johnson. I want to thank Linda McGrath and Northeast Streaming Sports. Although, to be honest, Linda, I really haven't used your Roku channel. I probably am just not going to use it anymore. I don't need it, but I do thank you for letting us use the Facebook page. And also want to thank John Gonzalez, especially from the Sports Authorities group. So really want to thank John. John always is supporting the show, always messaging me. So I really want to thank John. I'm also Very happy to see many of my friends on Facebook continuing to join the Sports Authorities group. And we're speaking all things related here to the world of sports with some of my guys from Sportswire Radio. So we did a lot of basketball, and that was great. And I was happy to get that out of the system. But let's go to baseball right now because it was funny. Last week we were on the show and we were speaking about the Mets, right? And kind of woe is me. And I was talking about the Mets and oh my God, they're playing the Atlanta Braves and we got to worry. And right now, the New York Yankees right now are the team, and I know they're right now in a dogfight with the Boston Red Sox, so that should be kind of expected. But I mean, Chris, should I now be worried a little bit because now the Houston Astros seem to be knocking on the door here for this top seed in the American League and in baseball, and does that matter? And obviously, the other thing is we haven't seen Aaron Judge start now quite a bit this last week, and is the wheels coming off here a little bit, or maybe we're just overreacting, similar to how we were with the Mets in the last few weeks? Give me your thoughts on the state of the Yankees.
I'm a little worried. I mean, listen, they're still going to make the playoffs. They're still going to win the division.
Oh, if they didn't make the playoffs with this record they have right now, God help us.
I don't think they're going to be that much off the rails, but I'm just thinking of the playoffs, right? I'm looking at this team.
All right.
And I said it today. I'm like, there's no way this team is getting to the World Series with this lineup. It's just not. I mean, it's top 5. Yeah, we're great, 1 through 5. But after that, there's a lot of zeros there. You got Gallo. Gallo is just ridiculous. I mean,
I heard Aaron Boone the other day speaking about Joey Gallo, and he's like, well, he was a 2-time All-Star before.
I don't care.
You just try to tell him that he can do it. You just try to tell him that he's done it before. And it was almost like, what are you going to do? Give him a massage next? I mean, the guy's hitting 160. What could you tell me that you're going to see out of him that is going to change things at this point?
How about we teach him how to
Aaron Boone's Art Howe 2.0. Mr. Positivity all the time.
Well,
listen, he has to say that, though. Boone has to say that. He's the manager.
Right, yeah.
He's not going to say, he's killing us. He's horrible. I don't even know why I'm starting him every game. He's got to say good things about him because that's all you could say. I mean, he is horrible. And the rest of the bottom of the lineup is bad, too. So they got to make a trade. I don't think they're going to replace IKF. So Gallo's got to be the guy. They got to either find a trade partner and just get something for him. I'm not saying anything.
I don't even know. What would you get for Joey Gallo? I heard somebody this past weekend. Yeah, I heard one of our supporters who, before he went away on vacation, stops me in the street, and he says, well, what if you package Gallo, Chapman, and maybe Andrew Har?
Who wants that, though?
That's my point. No, but that's what somebody's telling me.
Chapman gave up the go-ahead run tonight.
Right.
Honestly, Gallo might be a DFA situation at this point.
I kind of agree with you, Just, because I don't know what you could get for him. You can't even package a guy who's hitting 160. I mean,
to be honest, I think if he gets traded, there's a good chance he could kind of wake up and go back to what he was, which is not much different, but a guy that hits 205, but gets on base a lot and hits 40 homers a year. I think he could get to that. Like,
would teams take him as a throw-in? Like, let's say there's a certain player you're looking to acquire, and you're giving up a couple of prospects. Would a team take him as a throw-in?
It's possible.
Expiring contract. He's a free agent at the end of the year, so you're not on the hook for any more money besides the rest of the season.
Right.
And Chris, I wonder if the Yankees' plans change any bit at all because of this whole Andrew Benintendi situation. We all know that he's one of 10 Royals who can't play in Toronto this weekend, and because of the vaccination status.
Yeah,
and Toronto's a very likely playoff team, and who knows who's going to see them if they make the first round. So, does it change the Yankees' plans at all? Because we all thought that they might be in on a guy like Benintendi. And by the way, real quick, because we're not going to spend too much time on the Royals. How about what would have happened if Whit Merrifield didn't have a minor knee injury? He had the longest consecutive games played streak in baseball, but he sat out of the game because he was banged up, and it ended his streak. But his streak would have ended because he's one of the 10 non-vaccinated Royals.
Yeah, no, I agree. So there's got to be something. They got to add something because this team is not about winning the division. This team is
Oh,
about
great. I think we made that on last week's show. I
Yeah.
think with myself, Justin, and Rob Maraska. For the Yankees, it's not about the regular season. It's about
to me the regular
going.
season's over.
Yep, regular season. I got a bunch of comments in here. Let me get to some of them here. Carlos is kind of funny here. He says Gallo and Hicks are the secret weapons. Though
Yeah.
Hicks, at least, I kind of feel like provides you something. At least
He's
I feel
starting
like
to come around the last few
I
weeks.
feel like Hicks is a baseball player. Gallo, I don't know, but I am with Carlos in that he'll get you a bucket of popcorn, which I could go for some right now.
Yeah.
John Gonzalez says Cashman will be adding pieces soon. Well, duh, he better be because the deadline's
He
what?
and he's probably going
August
to add a
2nd?
pitcher too
August
at some
2nd.
point. So
And he says Hap is a possibility for the Yankees. Yeah, I heard that. I think last week on the Fan.
where is he right now?
Royals.
Ian Happ?
Yeah.
No,
Oh, Ian Happ. What do you mean, J.A. Happ?
No,
no,
Ian
no.
Happ.
Ian
He said
Happ.
Hap is a possibility.
Yeah.
Let me read
Center
that.
fielder.
His name has been up there for a
switch hitter.
while.
And Carlos says Royals have 10 new players because of freaking COVID-19.
Yeah.
John Gonzalez also says this is a good one because I did hear this actually a couple different times overnight in the Fan, so I knew I wasn't hearing things. I kept hearing rumors about Thor coming to the Bronx. I mean, hey, a Redux Part 2 here. I mean, Syndergaard coming to the Yankees. I mean,
The Angels, think about it. The Angels, to be honest, I know you guys are going to get on me right now, but the Angels should think about trading Ohtani right now. If they're not going to be able to sign him, they should think about trading him.
Steve Cohen, dial that number, please.
Do you realize what you're going to have to give up for him? I forget about the financial end of it, but if you're going to trade for him, let's say if he does go on the trading block, can you imagine what the Angels are going to ask for that guy?
I mean, we're just talking about before in basketball, Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant, but I mean, Ohtani is one of those guys that, I mean, he changes a fan base, he changes a team on and off the field.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. Shohei Ohtani is a freight train towards a second straight MVP.
Yeah.
That's
I agree.
That's just the reality of it. He has, despite the Angels' record, he has put himself in prime position to be the favorite for MVP again. And and I get the argument. Oh, you can't give it to Ohtani every year because he does two things.
Oh, you know what? They gave it to Bonds all those years. I saw Bonds get 3 consecutive MVPs.
He's doing things that hasn't been done since Babe Ruth, right?
And we may never see it again. I mean, we may never see
I'll
it.
say that I'll say that his offensive numbers are much better last year than they are this year to date. I believe his pitching has gotten so much better.
Which is a big key, and I got a number of different comments.
Too.
Before let me work in the brute force, but before that, let me get to some more comments. Carlos says Syndergaard to the Bronx. Yeah, I tell you what, I mean,
it's to see the Yankees entertain that, especially with Severino going on the
possibility.
IL.
John Gonzalez says the Angels have to trade Trout sooner or later. I mean, that's
the money's difficult.
Yeah,
because he's got 8 years left on the contract.
Yeah, that could be a tough one. I hope I can sell all my old Mets stuff. So he hopes so with Syndergaard, I guess. I mean, well, the brute force Bradway, some interesting points there, and I want to get your perspective on a couple of those things because obviously I like to get your thoughts in because I haven't heard from you in a while. And the first thought is, I mean, do the Angels have to move somebody like Ohtani? Because, I look at a Shohei Ohtani, and this is a generational player, and I think Justin made the point, and so did Chris, about basically we haven't seen this since Babe Ruth. I mean, Rick Ankiel tried for a brief period. It looked like Rick Ankiel could have did it, but he obviously had some other problems. But
not at the same time, though. He wasn't a two-way player. He was strictly a pitcher in the early 2000s, and then he reinvented himself as an outfielder.
Right. In 2000, he came up 99 and certainly became a different player. But, we haven't really seen this in our lifetime. So let's take a step back here. And I also want to give a happy birthday wish because actually we have somebody who hasn't been here in ages. I don't know where the hell he's been. And that is, of course, our very dear friend, Mr. Joseph Bostrom. Chris, you remember him from taking those calls during the Jets season. Joey Bostrom. Joseph Gialombardo Bostrom here. Happy birthday, Joey. Hope you had a great birthday. Hopefully you're doing well out there in the friendly confines of South Beach. And he says, it's a shame that the Angels record, despite Ohtani and Thor coming to the Bronx. I can see it. What are the brute force? I mean, do the Angels have to move Ohtani? And will we see Syndergaard in the Bronx? I mean, somebody is going to want to hear you on Instagram talk about this. So what do you think on all this?
Well, to start with Ohtani, obviously the Angels don't have to trade him. But I can't disagree with Chris saying that they should. Because this is the problem, though, that I'm having with all this. It kind of gets me back to what we were talking about with Kevin Durant. Where is there a good trade package for Shohei Ohtani? There isn't one. It's just like Durant. Like, I don't think there's an offer high enough for him. And we were talking about, like with the Knicks earlier, 6 first-round picks for Mitchell. I mean, just think about the trades you would have to put together for Durant or Ohtani in respective leagues. I mean, these are the top players in their leagues, and it's in a way not even close. So
well, theoretically, I mean, you would have to be looking for a whole bunch of prospects, and there's very few teams.
But, come on.
There's no big market team that has prospects.
What are you going to trade your whole AAA team? Like, are you going to trade everybody? I mean,
but the Angels are going to start with the Angels are going to start with every one of your top 5 prospects.
Right, and that's the start. Yeah. That's just to start it.
The start.
Right, because Ohtani, like we talked about, I mean, he's not only a great hitter, he's a great pitcher. So you're getting 2 and 1. And he's great at both of them. And he's an MVP candidate. So
and then
this guy, I don't see a trade out there that can ever be processed to get this guy in a trade. So that's my, backlash on that. And then with Syndergaard going to the Yankees, I can see it. I mean, Justin just mentioned Severino to the IL. I want to get Chris's thoughts on the recent performances of Jameson Taillon. That certainly hasn't been that exciting to be watching. So, also, although I'm not as concerned with Clay Holmes right now, but he hasn't been exactly himself the last few outings. So there is concern with the Yankees pitching as well. I know we talk so much about their hitting, because of, like Chris accurately said, they have those top hitters at the top of the lineup, and then they have a major deficit. I mean, Joey Gallo, I'm starting to think I should, maybe take some swings for the Yankees because this guy's batting 150.
What's the batting average this year with the Brew Crew?
You can't do any worse.
That's unheard of. Like, that's horrible. I mean, you have to DFA this guy. Like, this is unacceptably bad. Like,
how did you feel though as a teammate of his? Because you think about it, right? I mean, Aaron Hicks, Josh Donaldson, we brought up, but you know what? They're Major League Baseball players. At the end of the day, maybe they're hitting 220, 230, but you know what? They're Major League Baseball players. He's hitting 160. I mean, literally, like he's like the 13th man on a 12th man team, or a 26th man, or 25th man roster. I mean, what do you say as a teammate? Are you embarrassed? What do you do? I mean, this is so bizarre. I mean, I couldn't.
I mean, you're not embarrassed, but this is the thing with Joey Gallo at this point. I think the Yankees have done a lot to try to get Joey Gallo going. They have good leadership in their locker room. They got good coaching staff. I mean, they've done a lot for Joey Gallo. I just feel like Joey Gallo right now is in his own head, and he's hapless. I mean, he doesn't even look confident going to the plate every time he goes to hit. I mean, you could say all you want, trying to boost up the confidence of a player, but when he looks defeated, I mean, it's like he doesn't even know how to hit. Do you
know that if he were to hit on the pace he is just to get to 200, he'd probably have to hit like 300 the rest of the season? This guy has never shown in any stretch of his career the ability to do that.
No. So, I mean, as a player, as a teammate, there's only so much you can do. You can just keep trying to lift the guy's spirits, but the guy ultimately has to continue to practice and somehow figure it out. He's a major league baseball player.
I don't even know what you can practice. He's hitting 160. He's hitting 160.
He's a major league baseball player. I mean, this is the thing. Like, if this was happening to a kid or even a college player, I mean, it happens. But at this level,
you had some players on SJC. I'm not going to single people out because God knows they'll know who said it. But, I mean, you had some players that were in his shoes, and I have a couple different comments. Let me get to them here. Carlos Arturo Chavez says, I would sign Ohtani and sacrifice DeGrom. That's a wild thought there. Met fans like a Rob Morosco would probably have a heart attack. Interesting to see if Contreras draws interest from the Mets and the Yankees. Joey Bostrom agrees about Gallo, and yes, he points it out. And John Gonzalez is comical here. Breaking news, the Brew Crew has been designated for assignment. So you've been designated for assignment, apparently. So you've been Have you been DFA'd?
Well, I don't know if John Gonzalez is getting like this the secret insider scoop on how I'm playing each week with the Brew Crew, but I did have a rough week this past week. So I did make the plays in the field, but the hitting was bad. So I don't think I've been designated for a
Well,
sign.
that's what Joey Gallo does, right? He's supposed to be the guy who's a great fielder. That's why they say, well, he's a great fielder. We've got to keep him in there. And you know what, to be fair, there was like maybe a week or two, maybe in early June, where he had like a nice little stretch. I remember he had a couple hits against the Angels. I think he had another game. He got a couple hits. And then there was people like, well, this is the kind of player we thought. But since then, I think he's something like, 4 for 50 or something like that. 5 for like 54. I think I read at one point some like crazy stat like that. So, yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I almost think, Chris, going back to Joey Gallo really quickly, this is too much of a distraction for the Yankees. I mean, realistically, you really can't keep him on the team. This is just – it's a distraction. I just think for the good of the team, I think Justin's right. I think you have to DFA him and just bite the bullet because to me, it just seems like a pride issue here as to why they haven't cut him. And I think at this point, we're all under the conclusion that he's just not going to hit me at this point.
Exactly. No, I agree. I think it's going to come down to that pretty soon because, and not just for the benefit of the team, but benefit for him too, because he's going into his free agency year, right? So, I mean, you want him.
What a way to go out there. What a way.
I mean, what is he going to get if he keeps doing this? What is he going to get in free agency?
A minor league contract, maybe?
1 year deal, maybe to maybe hopefully bounce back, and I don't know, but they got to do something because there's no way in hell this guy is going to be in the lineup for the postseason.
No way.
Well, Chris, it almost goes to the same sentiment. What do I keep saying about Cody Bellinger? The Dodgers need to figure something out with him too. He's
right.
another.
But I feel like
player.
Bellinger at least has had some moments this season.
Right.
It's been a little bit better than last year, but I mean, Cody Bellinger's a flat out mess. I mean, granted, yes, he is over 200. Yes, he's batting a wonderful 210. But
hey, that looks like 350 compared to Gallo right now. I mean, the guy's hitting.
It does. But in 95 games last year, Cody Bellinger batted 165. I mean,
this guy that won the MVP, right? 2 years ago.
Yep. This is a former MVP who, after next season, is scheduled to be a free agent. So, I mean,
210, 11 home runs, 31 RBI.
Yeah, I mean, great. Now, granted, like Joey Gallo, Cody Bellinger could be masked in that Dodger lineup. Now, the Dodger lineup I think is a little bit better than the Yankee lineup, but
yeah,
it's deeper for sure.
I mean,
John Gonzalez says Gallo reminds me of Dave Kingman. Either hits it out or strikes out. But I think even
here's the difference.
No, Kingman at least
he's not even hitting home runs.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. Go ahead, Justin. What were you going to say, Justin?
That's the difference. Dave Kingman hits home runs. But with the whole Gallo situation, I mean, it's got to be just best for both parties to move on.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I mean, okay, last year I remember coming on the air last year, and I think Chris was some of them. At least there was some moments last year, hit some home runs, but this is embarrassing. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's got 10 home runs and 214 at bats. He's got 4 doubles. I mean, this is just embarrassing.
214 at bats.
It's embarrassing.
160. That's bad.
He has a 621 OPS. I mean, listen. I mean, guys in the Brew Crew could probably do better than that. I mean, you.
What I'm saying. That's what I said.
This is embarrassing. I mean, okay. I mean, I know Aaron Boone is hanging on for dear life about him being a 2-time All-Star, but this is just.
To be honest, what my question is, why does he continue to play?
That's a good question.
And you know what? I'm at the point where I don't care about defense anymore. I don't. And like you have said, that there are, like you said, Chris, there's a few more holes in the Yankee lineup, so it's not masked as well as Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger, I can make the argument, he's an incredible defensive center fielder. You need that out there.
Yep.
Gallo, I feel like, well, he's a good defensive outfielder. You could get that production defensively from other players. But why does he continue to play?
Right. No, because to be honest, right now, I don't think they want to put Stanton in the outfield as much. And Hicks has just been hurt too. He actually came back a little bit today. I think he pinch hit, but That's why I think they got to get somebody, even a center fielder, because you don't want to see Judge out there, because you're starting to see now the last 2 or 3 weeks, Judge has come back down to earth. He's really
And that was my next one. I mean, obviously, we've seen Judge not in the lineup a little bit more here over the past week. You've seen him out a few different times, and I guess it's for a number of different reasons, maintenance, injuries, who knows what else. I mean, are you worried about this, Chris, in terms of Judge here missing some time here and there? I mean, his numbers have definitely come down to earth here a little bit the last. I know he's hit some home runs here and there, but he's definitely not the same the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I just think playing center field is a lot of more wear and tear on him than him playing in right field. So I think it's starting to catch up. I mean, he's a big dude, and I think
he's
playing center field every night is definitely catching up to this.
Oh, now in July and August,
you know what it is? You don't have corner outfielders who cover a ton of ground either. I can make the comparison over in Queens, where Starling Marte covers a ton of ground in right field. So that's a lot less room for Brandon Nimmo. Now, granted, Brandon Nimmo's played a wonderful center field. I could argue he should be in the running for NL Gold Glove center fielder this year. He's been that fantastic. But when you have a guy in right field like Starling Marte who could cover so much ground, it takes a lot of pressure off the center fielder, and I feel like the Yankees don't have that.
No, and that's why.
Tom,
I think if
absolutely jump into Brew Force, because I got a couple of John Gonzalez comments, so jump in before I get to them. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, so I want to ask Chris 2 questions on the Yankees. All right, one, going back to what I said, your level of concern with Jameson Taillon, and then 2, how on this, or because this is the total opposite of the spectrum. We just got to Gallo. How does Matt Carpenter get in the lineup more for the Yankees? Because this man is the total opposite.
I know. Who saw this coming? He's got 11 home runs.
I don't think anybody's seen this coming.
It's unbelievable.
No, I look at it this way. Taillon, as long as he gets through the season and he's okay, I don't care, because is he gonna pitch in the postseason? Really? I don't think so. Right?
Yeah,
he's probably the number 4. Let's say even if they don't add a starter, which I think they will, but even if they don't add a starter, you're still going to have Garrett Cole as your number 1.
Absolutely.
Hopefully Sevy, I'm crossing my fingers on him. It's nothing major, and let's just say it's a couple of weeks, whatever. He'll probably be your number 2. And then number 3 is either going to be Cortez or Montgomery. You normally don't go 4 starters anyway in the playoffs. So I'm right. So I'm more concerned about Severino. Hopefully the shoulder thing is just what it is. Just well,
he's only pitched 40 innings the last 3 years or something like that.
I've been every week on the podcast. I always bring it up.
I know. I was listening to you guys, and we played
but Cortez and Taillon are pretty much dealing with innings issues as well.
Well, Taillon not really, because he pitched most of last year. But
okay, so that's really not as worrisome.
So I've been saying for a while, Cortez has never thrown over 100 innings in the major leagues,
and he pitched well last night, but we're already starting to see the drop off from Cortez.
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't been as sharp.
Oh, absolutely.
He wasn't going to throw to 1.7 ERA that he had.
Just like Holmes, right? Holmes' ERA was what, like 0.4, and now it's 1.7. Was he really? Did anybody really think his ERA was going to be basically under 1 the whole year?
That's different for a reliever, though. I think it's a little more sustainable for a reliever, but for a starter piling up innings, especially for the first time like Nestor Cortez, you knew that was going to catch up. Look, I think that the struggles for the Yankees are coming at the absolute perfect time.
I have a comment that's so
before the trade deadline,
and now you know what you need.
I have a comment in here. I don't even know why I'm going to post it, but this is just for kicks before I get to John Gonzalez. And this is from YouTube, and I don't know who this is unless I'm missing something here. But this is just for laughs here, for kicks. Are there hooligan fanatics in football and basketball in the United States like in Europe? In Europe, they throw smoke flares, burn chairs, sometimes curse the players. What do you think? What do you think? You tell me, what would you like hooligan fanatics in the United States to do? Would you like them to smoke flares? Would you like them to burn chairs? I can tell you, if you're a fan of professional wrestling, yes, in the wrestling business, we throw chairs. Yes, in the wrestling business.
Well, not the
Sometimes-
fans, the
Oh.
more the
Well,
wrestlers.
once in a while, listen, we had a wrestler on yesterday, Disciple, and he was wrestling somebody, and for kicks, he actually took the wrestler, and he kind of went like this, and people were actually beating up the wrestler. So I was part of the gimmick, I guess. So there have been
The
incidents
only
like
kind
that.
of hooligan fans we have are guys that want to fight in the stands each other or whatever.
Well,
So,
that's when you're drunk and such, and that's,
Yeah.
here nor
Like
there.
the other night.
And
That's the
John Gonzalez is funny. Had a great line here. Says, the only sports hooligan I know is the brute force.
he's not throwing chairs or smoke flare.
Look at the size of him.
I will say,
Bobby Knight.
Go ahead, Brad, jump in.
no, I will say, Chris, I definitely am not that guy. But if the New York Knicks continue to be flagrantly awful, in a couple of years, I might lose it. I mean, my patience level is getting crazy to this point where we might be throwing chairs soon.
All right, well, we'll certainly say stay tuned. Let me get to a couple more John Gonzalez comments in here. He says, some guys just can't play in New York. Sonny Gray, Jacoby Ellsbury, Ed Weston. Yeah, Kevin Brown you want to throw in there for the Yankees. I mean, to an extent.
Paul O'Neill said it right. He goes, sometimes or a lot of times the pinstripes are heavy when you first put them on.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Makes sense.
I think playing in New York, and Brad can attest to it, obviously being an athlete at a level, playing in New York is different than playing in Kansas City, or it's different than playing in Milwaukee. Playing in New York,
anywhere.
Well, even like, I know Justin made the point, well, you have social media now, you have all these things, but even I remember, 20, 30 years ago, you had talk radio still. We always had the fan. So playing in New York, you always had a 24/7 mindset. You always had that pressure, that press, the two newspapers, plus the other papers around, and everything else that people were commenting here. But I got a good one in here before I go back over to the Mets for a little while. And I guess, Chris, you can answer it. And John Gonzalez has a good one here. The Yankees should inquire about Brian Reynolds. What do you think on that?
They definitely have, but the problem is they want Volpe, they want Peraza, they want Dominguez to start.
Right.
So,
and
jump in there,
right.
Justin.
That's the start.
He just got hurt. He's now on the IL. So I think he's off the table for this year.
Yeah, I don't think it was an option this year. They're asking too much. Here's my thing, and I've been saying this for a while. If we go into the offseason and Judge does not sign here and he goes to wherever he goes, whether it's the Mets, the Angels, whoever, I think the Yankees are going to pivot and make a big trade for either Reynolds or Juan Soto. And that's why I think they're reluctant into giving, getting Brian Reynolds right now, because they might need to get him.
I could see Soto more so.
Well,
than
you
Reynolds.
mentioned Soto at the
I've
end
been
of the
talking
show.
about Reynolds for, I'd say, 2 years.
Yeah,
now.
but you know what? I'm starting to get the feeling that, and it's not. We haven't really seen the fruits of their labor just quite yet. Like we're starting to see with the Baltimore Orioles, we're starting to see their young talent really start to pay off with how well they're playing. We haven't quite gotten there yet with the Pirates. I start to sense that they are going to actually build the team around Brian Reynolds. And I think he's the one guy that they're going to take care of.
Well, they should build around somebody.
Well, that's
And
why they're
especially,
the moon fan.
and especially you're seeing the freakish talent of O'Neal Cruz and had that
Yeah,
100-mile-an-hour throw from shortstop last night.
That guy's ridiculous.
I mean, Pittsburgh is building something. I can see it. I really can.
Well, they better, because it's almost another franchise that, really has had.
Look, there are franchises that are complete embarrassments right now, like the Washington Nationals, the
Oh, my
Detroit
God.
Tigers.
Seriously, do they just roll over? Do you remember when we were kids and you'd play sports with the forfeit rule, where you just almost give up? I feel like every time I see that Washington Nationals play the Miami Marlins,
the Nationals
play
are
the
in-
3 years since they
The
won
Nationals
the
are
World
an utter
Series.
format right now.
it's
They're
embarrassing. I'll
so
be honest.
embarrassing.
How can
It's
you
a
go from the
forfeit.
World Series in 3 years to the worst, from the best to the worst in 3 years?
Brad,
Exactly.
I think that as a player,
That's,
you probably
impossible.
love. Brad, as a player, you would love playing against a team like the Washington Nationals. There weren't many we are at SJC, but I feel like that those teams, that's the forfeit rule. Those are the teams that you just don't even show up, don't even bother play.
But I see the Pittsburgh Pirates building something. To finish my point, and I think they might actually hold on to him.
Well, we'll see about that. Oakland has become.
There you go. Another
Oakland, another one.
Dog bleep embarrassment.
Well, speaking of two teams, real quick before I get to the Mets, that for whatever reason they're not putrid anymore. The first one is the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, the Baltimore Orioles.
Wow.
I mean, I spoke about them last week, and I thought, well, maybe there's a chance. Well, no, they definitely have a chance now. And the Seattle Mariners. I mean, the Seattle Mariners and the Baltimore Orioles have really shook things up in the American League. I mean, Brad, what do you think? All of a sudden, the Orioles are no longer doormats, and the Mariners are. Looks like maybe they proved everybody right after all at the beginning of the season that they'd finally break the playoff streak, because those two teams could right now. Who knows?
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I think and both teams are obviously have went on long winning streaks recent.
Absolutely.
But I think the bigger story is the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles, have not too much of a different roster from years past. I mean, they've added a few little pieces, but they're mostly the same team, but they just have gotten a lot better. Obviously the addition of the catcher Rushman from AAA has definitely helped them as well. But listen, the Orioles are just playing some great baseball, and like you said, I mean, to think of the Orioles being a 500 baseball team right now, 45.
I forgot the last time the Baltimore Orioles. And I think I think I posted in the Sports Authorities group the last time, this was earlier in the week, that the Baltimore Orioles had this long of a winning streak. Sammy Sosa was a Baltimore Oriole.
Yeah. Wow. 2005, I think it was.
Yeah, 2005. I mean, has it been that long, Brad? I mean, wow. I mean, the Baltimore Orioles, they've been bad the last 3 or 4 years since obviously Buck left. But wow.
No, so it is a surprise, and then. This is the question, though, that I want to ask, especially now that we're going to start talking about the Mets.
Yep.
Are the Baltimore Orioles all of a sudden a buyer? I mean, because we talked about them selling off Trey Mancini potentially to us, which is still the move I think the Mets should try and make. But the fact that they're only 2.5 games out of the wild card right now. It's not like they're still 10 games out. They're in the picture. I mean, they continue to win. They could still sneak themselves in. So are they going to add I'm not saying they're going to add some super, but are they going to add things instead of subtract? I mean, we'll see ultimately, but they've actually put us in a situation where we might have to question it, whether or not they're going to do that. So, but on the Seattle side of things, I mean, they had a tough stretch, but I'm not really that surprised with Seattle. I thought Seattle was going to be a solid team this year. They do have solid pieces, young talent, some players having some good years. So I'm not surprised as much as I am with the Orioles. The Orioles have just been absolutely amazing.
I can't figure out the Orioles. I mean, this was a team I would have thought, okay, maybe they lose 95 games this year and they're 45-45.
Yeah.
Let me get to – you got to jump in.
To Brad's point, I think the Orioles are actually going to stay neutral. I think that the Trey Mancini might be out the window because of where they're at, but I don't see them adding, only from the standpoint it is you don't want to be fooled by this latest winning streak. Like, how good are they really? So my guess is my thing is let it ride out with these kids. Let's see how far they could take them this year, and then in the offseason, that's when you determine how good this franchise could really be, and the Orioles are going to become a force. As for the Mariners, we expected the Mariners to be good, and they got off to a very poor start. So they're now starting to realize their talent, and I got to tell you, there was so much talk about Jared Kelenic being the top prospect. This Julio Rodriguez kid is mind-blowing. He just hit a grand slam. And, I believe
that's kind of timed how he's come in here, and this team is just like
they've absolutely taken off. And the same could be said for Michael Harris with the Braves, although not quite the prospect magnitude.
Sure.
That's kind of when the Braves started taking off. But, I mean, this Julio Rodriguez kid, my goodness, is just absolutely – he's a freak talent.
And let me get to a few more comments in here. Joey Bostrom's got a few. So I always want to get to Joey Bostrom because Joey hasn't been with us in a while. Oakland is bad. Baltimore and Seattle really coming alive. Seattle hasn't made the playoffs since 2001. Longest streak in the major leagues, if I'm correct.
I think professional sports. Forget baseball.
Yeah.
You know what? Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that would be.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Wow. Well, 2001. Wow. Who would have thought? 2001 longest streak. That certainly says time flies. And I remember that 2001 Mariners team very, very well. That was Ichiro Suzuki as a rookie, where he just every time you saw him at bat, he got a hit. And that was the year I think Brett Boone might have had like 140 something RBIs. Brett Boone of all people, who ironically,
with Seattle.
I'm friends with on Facebook. Who would have guessed that I'm friends with Brett Boone on Facebook?
Hey, even John Gonzalez's Detroit Lions have made the playoffs in the last 20 years.
They've made a couple of playoff appearances. So even the Lions have been, I guess, better than the Mariners have been in that run.
And you're right.
John Gonzalez,
141.
1-5. Remember, he had it was every time he came up. Mark McLemore was on that team, another guy who was just a nice player, and I think it was Sasaki was their closer. I think Freddie Garcia was on the. Jamie Moyer won 21 games on that team.
As a hero, Sasaki.
Yep, he had 50-something saves. I think came out of nowhere. I mean, that was just a good ball club. They had a good team, and that was the last time that they made the postseason. And John Gonzalez says, I can see the Brew Crew trading the Brute Force to Oakland for some rosin balls. Or how about in bowling?
We'll get more than that for them. Come on.
The rosin bags. How about the rosin bags? And Joey Bostrom says the 2001 team broke the AL record for wins. Yes, they did. They were 116-4. Something that we've talked about here quite a bit on Sportswire. That was a good, like I said, that was a good team. I think John Olerud was on that team. Also was a good player for some years. I mean, that was
Mike Cameron.
Mike Cameron, another player. I think he hit the year before. I want to say hit 4 home runs in a game. I think or something. 5 consecutive home runs at that or whatever.
Freddie Garcia went 18-6.
Yeah.
Aaron Seeley 15-5. Like you said, Moyer won 20 games.
That was a good ball club, a good team. They had a nice little
Jeff
run.
Nelson in the bullpen.
Yep.
Arthur Rhodes.
I remember Arthur Rhodes. He was a setup man.
Zaki, like you talked about. I mean, there was just a lot of really
Seeley.
good players.
Aaron Seeley was always a good starter, never quite at number one. Was with Texas.
Solid 2.
Yeah, he was a solid one. And then you mentioned Freddie Garcia, another guy. Mets, right? Very briefly, it was Freddie. By the time we got it, it was the Braves. It was the Braves, right? I think the Braves had Freddie Garcia.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Braves had him by the time then he was done. But Freddie Garcia was the best starting pitcher the Mariners had for quite a while. And also we had here easy on my Lions, Chris, rosin bags. I thought so, John. I thought it was the bowling reference of the rosin bag. And John Gonzalez says the White Sox have been at this point. Yes, but we've been talking about the White Sox, but because of the American League Central, you can't count them out.
Yeah, no, they're still in it. I think they're 2-3 games out. They're right there.
Yeah, they're a half game behind the Orioles. They're 44-45.
They're right in it.
3 games back in 4 in the Central, I think, and 3 in the wild card. I mean,
it doesn't matter who wins in the Central. They're not going far in the playoffs.
And John Gonzalez says the 1995 Mariners were one of the most talented teams ever.
Yes,
I don't know if I'd agree with that. I don't.
No,
think,
you know what? That 95 team. If I will say, even though they won they had the record in 01. I really think with Griffey and Edgar, and Randy Johnson, that 95 team. Jay Buhner, that 95 team was one of the better. They might be one of the better teams to not win a championship.
Yeah, but their record really, they came on late. They were 13 and a half games back, whatever it was in August, and their starting pitching, other than Randy Johnson, really wasn't impressive. The 2001 team was a very good team. To me, they were a good team. They were the 2000 team that the year before went to the Yankees in the ALCS, and Joey Bostrom actually kind of agrees with John Gonzalez and Justin because he says the 1995 Mariners had a lot of heart. Yeah, it was refused to lose. And
79-66.
That was the I remember actually, Joey remember because Joey and I, we know each other a long time. And that was the day they played a 1-game playoff. And Brad will chuckle about this. It was a 1-game playoff. It was on ESPN, I believe, at 4 o'clock. And I remember running home from school actually to watch the Angels and Mariners 1-game playoff, ESPN, because the day before, the Angels and Mariners tied for the American League West, and they had a 1-game playoff, which never happened at that time. So it was like, wow.
And if I remember correctly, because I remember watching both things. I don't know if it was the same day or it was the next day, but it was around that. It was either that day, the same day, or the next day was the O.J. Simpson verdict.
I think OJ, if I recall correctly, because again, I remember this very well, I think it was the same day. Because I remember,
right.
because I was in school, and I remember this one kid was like, "OJ's innocent. OJ's innocent." It was like I remember it very well. So I think it was an afternoon. I want to say Monday afternoon that all went down. I mean, Joey's a little older than me, so Joey might actually remember. And then
I was in
he actually.
Cooperstown. I had a trip that weekend, and we went, and I remember sitting there watching both things. And I don't know if it was a different day or the same day, but I remember watching both up there.
I think they were both on a
Crazy.
Monday. I mean, I'm sure somebody will check and quote me on this, but I definitely remember that the Angels and Mariners was a Monday afternoon. It was a 4 o'clock in Seattle on ESPN, and it was just
And
Randy Johnson.
it was a blowout too.
Oh, it was a horrible game. It was just all
Yeah.
ran. It was just
4 in the 7th,
Angels
4
had
in
no
the 8th.
shot in that game.
yeah.
No shot.
The Mariners scored 4 in the 7th, 4 in the 8th. It was a 1-0 game up until the
Yeah,
bottom of
the Angels
seventh.
lineup just could not hit that day, Randy Johnson. There was
Yeah,
just no
they
way.
weren't
That was a
touching
good lineup. They had Tim Salmon, they had Gary Anderson, Tony Phillips, they had
Jim
Jim
Edmonds.
Edmonds. There was
Yep.
there was a good lineup,
JT
and they
Snow.
couldn't hit. And John Gonzalez has a 95. They had Griffey, the Martinez boys, Tino Martinez,
They were
offensively.
loaded up. They were like a half loaded. Like you
Yeah.
said, pitching. They had one good starter,
And
and the
no,
rest
they-
were not
I
good.
think
And
their closer, if I'm not mistaken, was Norm Charlton. I don't think their
I think
closer
so.
was Norm Charlton.
I have their roster up so I could tell you.
And
'cause I'm
Joey
looking at
said
the
it was a
90.
Monday afternoon. Yep. So Joey,
It was,
Joey
yeah.
Charlton and Bobby Ayala.
Oh my God, Bobby
The
Ayala.
closers.
Yeah, I told you they really
And
were.
the starters, think about the starters. You had Randy Johnson, then you had Tim Belcher at 10 and 12.
Tim Belcher was
Chris
always
Bocchio.
like a Steve Traxel. It was,
Yeah, the rest of that rotation, not good.
just
Belcher, Bocchio, Solomon
Chris-
Torres, and Andy Bennett.
Andy Bennett they had as a rental, I think, because Andy
Yeah.
Bennett was with the Cardinals afterwards. But that 95 playoffs was a classic. So let's move off 1995 because 1995 I could talk about all day, but we're in 2022. I want to go back to the New York Mets because you know what? We talked a lot about the Yankees a little bit. We talked about different teams. And the brute force, I mean, I guess, we spoke all about it on social media. And I was going on saying, you know what? They're playing the Braves, right? And the Braves are going to go in. They're going to sweep the Mets. They're at home. It's a house of horrors for the Mets. And yet, I mean, I guess it's all that money you pay for Max Scherzer. You get that one win. You were winning on Tuesday. And then, listen, you play a Wednesday afternoon game and the big boys come out and hit. And the brute force, I guess you clearly knew something that we didn't hear on Sportswire Radio. And the Mets win 2 out of 3. And all of a sudden, all is well for now.
Tom Bryce, you see it right behind me. And I said it to you last week, or the last time I was on 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to say it again, and I'll say the lyrics just from Demi Lovato's song that I posted 3 times on Instagram.
I heard on Instagram.
What's wrong with being confident, Tom Bryce? Because the last time I was on this show 2 weeks ago, I preached this word, confidence, in our New York Mets. After that series against the Marlins, and everybody was like,
the song from your sister's playlist.
No, that's just a great song, and I knew that it was perfect for you, Tom Bryce, you. Because 2 weeks ago, Tom Bryce on this very show was like, we're about to play Atlanta. We played terrible in Atlanta. We're in big trouble. Blah, blah,
We
blah.
didn't play great going into the series, though, I would remind you.
That's correct, but we forgot about the team that the New York Mets actually are, and they are a good baseball team. And I'm here to tell you, Tom Bryce, right now on this show, all right, and I'll get to more when I talk about this later. The Atlanta Braves, in my very opinion right now, are a little bit overrated, in my opinion. I'll get to more about that in a second. But our New York Mets have been fighting all year long. They've been winning series all year long. Even through their tough times, they've still persevered and righted the ship. And the Mets went into that series in Atlanta and showed who really, I believe, is the better team, even without some of their key players. And
Jeff
Mark McNeil, right? And you don't even have DeGrom on the roster, which, by the way, I'll get to in a second, Tom Bryce, because you know that I was on the record saying this as well, and you've seen this man, and he looks like the man we want on the mound again in his rehab starts. But I'll get to that in a second. But listen, there was no reason to veer off the Mets and the confidence. I know their lineup wasn't really performing, but the one thing that they've been doing has been still working at bats, making pitchers work. All right, and coming up, even though their runners, the scoring position numbers weren't that great, they still found a way to put together enough runs to win games. And when you have Max Scherzer pitching against the Braves, and he goes out there and he has a gem, that's the type of Max Scherzer that we signed up for.
Well, that was big. I'll tell you what, that was big in the way that Buck set the rotation, having him start on Monday, because that was big. I'll tell you that.
I mean, he was excellent. David Peterson pitched a hell of a game against them. And
the bullpen came through for us on Monday. Yeah, I was like, oh boy, here we go again. Here we go again.
Exactly. And this is against the big bad Braves that everybody's talking about. And Tom Bryce was comparing it to the Knicks against the Bulls in the 90s. These ain't the damn Bulls. This is an Atlanta Braves team that has taken advantage of a weak schedule. That's what they've done.
No,
That's the reason why they're here. They're not that good, Tom Bryce. They're really not.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm
going that far.
I don't know about that.
I'm going that far. They're a good baseball team, but they are not the team right now that should be getting a lot of credit like they belong in the same conversation as the New York Mets. They are not. Right now, they still have a lot more to prove. They haven't really beaten anyone. They beat the Cardinals the other week, and everybody's like, oh, they beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals played like hot trash for a week. Okay, they were terrible.
They loaded up on the Reds. They loaded up on the Nationals. I mean, how many times do I have to see Nationals Braves? I mean, they loaded up.
Exactly. So, listen, I'll start getting on the Braves and a little more, respect for them when they actually play some opponents that are, will make me excited. But they went against the Mets B team, basically, and still lost the series to them. And arguably could have gotten swept if the Mets had came through a couple times.
I got some comments. People are coming down.
Hold on, I want to finish my thought.
Go ahead.
I want to finish my thought because this is what I want to say. Because I want to make this clear on Sportswire Radio. We don't need to hear Tom Bryce saying nothing else for a little while about the Braves. I want to hear
12 more games against them. See, this is where I'm going to disagree a little bit here. And I'm actually going to go with John Gonzalez second. I'm going to pull his comments because we got 12 more games with them still. We didn't win.
But here, hold on. Because this is what I want to say now. Chris Pizzea said this last week, and I think he was accurate by saying
yes, right.
He said that the worst we do against the Braves is split. And I totally agree with that. And Tom was a little skeptical of that. And I think there's no reason to think that we won't. We just proved with not even our best team that we could beat them in a series in their own stadium. So what's going to make us think that when we get DeGrom back? All right, and again, I'll get to DeGrom a little bit later. We'll talk about him.
Yes, I want to get into DeGrom.
Scherzer, right? Taijuan Walker is pitching some damn good baseball. All right, Carrasco. We have the pieces. And we're going to get guys like Pete Alonso ain't even hitting well right now. And he didn't hit well against the Braves. But who came through against the Braves? The guy who we've been ripping on all season long a little bit. Francisco Lindor, who we can talk as much as we want about his average. But he has been a big-time player for us this year in making things happen, hitting home runs, driving in runs. And ultimately, he came up clutch when we needed him
He's had an interesting season because – yes, he's had streaks that he's gotten hot. Then he's had other streaks that he's been totally ice cold. He had, 1 month, I think he hit like 190, and then in between that has been okay. I mean, he's had an interesting season. Let me get to a few comments. John Gonzalez says the brute force also has confidence in James Dolan. Anthony Finkel likes the brute force being fired up. John Gonzalez agrees with me that the Braves are not overrated. I do not think they are not overrated. They think they are the world champions for a reason. Joey Bostrom takes kind of the middle ground. He says, I think it's going to be a battle between the Mets and Braves for the division. I think the Mets take it in the end. Well, we'll find out. Anthony Finkel says the brute force is fired up. And John Gonzalez says the brute force, get a grip. The Braves are the defending champions. And I'm inclined to agree with John Gonzalez because I will still go back for everybody else here in the history of the Mets and Braves. And that's the reality of it is that you can put the years in, but
I don't want to hear nothing about history. I want to hear about
games. They got 12 more games. They got 12 more games. I cannot make
hold on. I don't want to hear nothing else about history. I want to hear about this.
They got 12 more games. I just told you. No, okay, fine. You want to go take away the history? Fine. 2099, 2001's eons ago. I got you. But you got 12 more games with them. You have 12 more games with them. If you go like Chris said, 6-6, yeah, I think the Mets will be fine. But we still have to play those games. You have to play the games.
Yep.
We do, but I'm telling you right now, we're going to get some.
Just like Herman Edwards said, you play to win the games. The New York Mets have to play those games to win.
They do have to play those games.
Confidence.
What I'm going to say is they're going to play those games with, a few more stronger pieces. They're going to play those games with a bunch of starts with Jacob deGrom on the mound, all right, and Scherzer. So I'm feeling quite confident that in these games.
DeGrom, I think, and I'll get the guy's perspective on it in a second. I think DeGrom is looking like DeGrom. I think DeGrom and Scherzer, as long as you set them in the rotation back-to-back against the Braves, yeah, I think you would be right.
We know we will.
All right, well, we'll see about that here. I mean, let's get some of the guys' perspective. Justin, I mean, obviously, huge series, huge victory here for the Mets. I mean, I think you have to be fired up. Obviously, we're happy about all of this. And, I mean, how big is this for the Mets to at least get these 2 out of 3 and then follow up, obviously, with a nice victory against the Cubs before today's game being rained out?
This is absolutely huge. I mean, with missing two major pieces of this lineup, with Starling Marte dealing with the groin issue, and then Jeff McNeil went off for paternity leave. To welcome
Which I still don't get why people were telling him. There was, who was the guy? Steve Covino from Sirius XM?
Yes, Covino and Rich from Fox Sports Radio.
I was like, when you said Steve Covino, I'm like, I know that dude. He's from Jersey. And
I ripped them. I ripped them a one on Twitter.
I saw that.
And all they replied back to me was a laughing GIF.
Did he not know that the dude was having a kid? I mean, if he didn't go and be with his wife,
he said it's an important series. You better be there for the important series. No. Family comes first.
Right.
You fly to California because his wife and family lives out in California. You go be with them, and you come join us after the couple of days. He rejoined the Mets last night in Chicago. Got the first hit for the new baby boy. But this series was huge. I mean, you get the performance from Max Scherzer on Monday night, and it set the tone for the series.
Absolutely.
It set the tone that the Mets starting pitching would not be afraid of the Braves lineup. And despite getting the loss and giving up the 2-run homer, I believe it was to Austin Riley, David Peterson showed balls. David Peterson pitched well against the lineup I thought was a bad matchup for him, but his recent stretch of being able to put up a lot more strikeouts has really turned him into a different pitcher. And David Peterson is going to likely be the odd man out when Jacob deGrom returns. That's a weapon to have in the bullpen. That really is a weapon. David Peterson, I think David Peterson is starting to blossom in to the guy we drafted in the first round of 2017.
I remember very well.
This was a collegiate pitcher who pitched at the University of Oregon, was a very, very high-touted prospect out of college. The Mets take him in the first round, and I think we're starting to bear the fruits of his labor. Him working hard, getting better, the work of Jeremy Hefner, working with his slider. There's been a difference in David Peterson. And then in Game 3, you get a really good performance from Chris Bassett. You get the offense to wake up. Again, Francisco Lindor, 6-7 hits in the series. Had huge moments all over the series. And then and you come out winning 2 out of 3. It's got to give you every bit of confidence. It really does. and to go down to Atlanta. Yeah, exactly. And so to go down to Atlanta and win 2 out of 3 was huge because it sends a message to the Braves. Said, hey, you're not rolling over us this year. We're not falling apart like last year. And the Mets are here to stay. Now, whether they win the division or not, that remains to be seen. But I can tell you,
I think it's still early for that.
I can tell you one thing. The Braves are going to have to work extra hard for it because the Mets are not just going to let this lead slip away. They're not. And look, with the new playoff format, we also no longer have the game 163. There's a tiebreaker. So if the Mets win the division, that's basically an extra game advantage.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
That's with a season series. That's an extra game advantage. And right now, you got the Mets up 4-3 because it was a split at Citi
Early
Field.
in the year. Yep.
Yep, they had a split in May at Citi Field.
Because they made up the series that was postponed because when the players and owners were still arguing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There was
Right?
Yes, there was one. Yeah, there was two. There was 2 games. The Mets only lost 5 games because they had a 3-game with Washington
Yep.
and then 2 with Atlanta. They made one of them up as a doubleheader, and then coming up, I think it's the first weekend in August.
Right.
There's a 5-game series.
Oh boy, that's going to be wild. That's going to be wild here. And also, Justin had brought up a little while ago, and he has said the Yankees lost. So certainly, apologies there to you, Chris. Obviously, we'll certainly try to be a little bit more neutral than maybe Justin would be when it comes to the Yankees loss.
Okay.
Because, well, we're on Sportzwire Radio. We try to give everybody a fair shake here. So we don't try to we try to be as impartial. I always say with my news background, we always try to give everybody a fair shake. But John Gonzalez says here, the Braves have an all-star lineup. How the hell can they be overrated? Yeah, you know what? I'm with John. I can't believe I'm agreeing with John Gonzalez.
Overrated. How about this? How about the Mets are underrated? I'll say it that way.
I don't know.
The Braves are not overrated. The Braves are the defending world champ.
Right. I agree.
Look at it that way. I think the Mets are underrated. Not underrated, but I think they're underappreciated maybe by some people.
Okay. I like that, Chris. But my only reason for the Braves being overrated is because of everybody hyping them up like they're having a great season because they're beating up on the Nationals and these really weak teams.
But your winning percentage is like 6.
And they're not even beating them that bad. They're just barely squeaking by, but they're winning the games. I'll give them credit for winning the games. But show me against teams that are actually playing well. And they actually finally ran into one and lost the series. So I want to see them play somebody.
Well, I was happy they lost to the Cubs 2 out of 3. Remember the couple weeks ago they lost 2 out of 3.
Exactly. So let me see some more competitive baseball teams that the Braves can play. And I'm telling you, they're not going to have this level of success. Everybody's bloviating about them because they've won so many damn games against teams that are.
Well, they're on a 14-game winning streak. I mean,
you can't even credit them anymore for the 3 out of 4. Against the Giants because the Giants have really started.
Yeah, Giants have. I was watching the Giants this week. Yeah, the Giants.
And if you look at the Braves over the past month, they've lost.
The Giants are going to fall off.
Justin, the Cardinals too. I mean, they haven't played
the Cardinals the Cardinals have really struggled offensively. But if you look at the past month, the Braves have lost, I believe, 3 series. That series you talked about to the Cubs, they lost 2 out of 3.
They lost to the Dodgers.
They lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers. We know who the Dodgers are. Dodgers are a tremendous team. And they lost 2 out of 3 to the Mets. Other than that, you got a sweep of Washington, 3 out of 4 with St. Louis, 2 out of 3 against the Reds, 2 out of 3 against the Phillies, 3 out of 4 against the Giants.
Well, Phillies have played well since the manager
series. They lost to the they swept the Nationals, they swept the Pirates, they swept the A's, they swept the Rockies. And then before that, their last 2 out of 3 before that was losing 2 out of 3 to the Diamondbacks. They lost the first 2.
All right, well, the Diamondbacks is not impressive, but the Phillies have played better since they fired Girardi.
Well, but they've also fallen back to earth since Bryce Harper got hurt.
True. Well, I'll give you that. I see 4 top-tier teams, and we'll get to Randy Dillon in a couple of minutes. He's here with us. I see 4 top-tier teams in the National League. Dodgers, Mets, Braves, Padres, and the Brewers can get an honorable mention. I think that's
the Brewers because of their pitching, but that lineup leaves a lot to
But they've bounced back nicely, though. They've kind of bounced back. Remember about a month or so ago? Oh,
they
definitely
need a bat.
Yeah.
Yes.
They could be a landing spot for Joey Gallo. You want to give Joey Gallo to the Brewers?
We get a bucket of bowls or a couple of rosin bags, like we're giving away Force for.
You're gonna get Wisconsin fresh cheese.
You know what? That's actually not bad. I personally would love that, but
I was gonna say. I mean, that
I don't know
ain't
if
too bad.
Cashman would be okay with that. But
Well,
I'd be all over.
Joe, that's Tom Bryce.
I didn't say the Mets were going to blow it and not making the playoffs.
What I'm saying is that I'm saying that you might be one of those people that are waiting for it to happen.
Well, first of all, they have a history.
Of course, he's seen it so many times.
All right, I want to give you an
I
example.
know, but
But I hear you. I hear, and Demi Lovato is a great singer, and Demi Lovato, listen, she's a wonderful
I don't think it's
singer.
going to happen either, but I understand his point. I understand.
But listen, 1998, the last series of the season, the Mets were in the only wild card. They got swept in Atlanta. 1999, the National League Championship Series. The Mets were down 5-0 in the first inning. Al Leiter gave up 5 runs without getting it out. The Mets come back and take the lead. They lose it. I mean, 2001, the Mets and Braves were battling it for the last week. The Mets came all the way back. They were like 14 games out of first place. They got to within 2 games after 9/11. The season restarted, and all of a sudden, the Mets died. 2000. Let's even for bonus. 2007 and 2008.
For bonus.
You saw that, and the Mets choked those things away. So there's a history that the New York Mets have of blowing things. So that's why.
And here you go. September 30th, October 1st. October 2nd, Mets, Braves, Truist Park.
There you go. That might be for the division.
I think it's a very strong possibility.
It might be, or it
that
might
it
not.
will be. I think that it'll very well strong. Before I get to Randy Dillon,
run away with it by then.
Before I get to Randy, God bless him, Randy's here, and Joey also says, "Ouch, 2007." Yeah, well, I mean, they were up 7.5 with 17 games to play, and in 2008 they were up 3.5 games, I think, with like 13 to play, and in both instances, they lost, and the Miami Marlins, or Florida Marlins at the time, eliminated them from postseason contention. So, yes, the Mets do
because of a former Brave pitcher, if you want to add that, right?
Tom Glavine, I think, if I'm not mistaken in that game, Justin will probably correct me, I don't even think he got out of the first inning in the 2007 game.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
No.
And Anthony Finkel says...
Wasn't that the day that they were celebrating Shea Stadium and all that?
That was 08.
Oh, 08. I'm sorry. Right. That was 08.
08 was the last day at Shea. 2007 I remember it very well. It was a beautiful afternoon. Sunday afternoon. It was summer-like, and everybody felt so good.
Right after John Maine saves the season, because the day before, the Mets were in dire straits.
Yeah,
John Maine saves him with like a one-hitter.
You don't remember 2007 and 8, the Brew Force? Come on, you were around. You remember?
Here's the hold on. This is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to keep the history out of my mind here, Tom Brett. So we're trying to talk. Again, let's repeat the word. Confidence. We're in 2022. We have a good team. We have a new owner. We have a good manager. We got everything that you want. Confidence.
I think they have a good team. I think that I don't know if I necessarily agree with Chris that they're underrated. I think that they are what they are, which is 22 games over 500. So I think they are kind of actually where they are because they have a great slugger in Alonso. At times, they have a powerful hitter in Lindor. I think McNeil's back to his old self. I think Canna's a very nice player. I think Starling Marte has been an excellent addition. I think he's been probably a very underrated. Billy
Epler cannot get enough credit for the Starling Marte.
Right, I think and he's an all-star and well deserved.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Justin, to exemplify that point, Billy Epler cannot get enough credit for not making the mistakes that he could have made, like signing Javi Baez and Marcus Stroman and all these things. Like,
I was hoping to see Marcus Stroman today. I was hoping to see him. I saved myself just enough time to see him. I was waiting. Actually, we were going to have a wrestler come on, and I actually said to him, "What time do you want to come on?" We said 8 o'clock because I figured, I could watch Stroman the first couple of innings, and of course, Mother Nature doesn't cooperate. Yeah. So that's here nor there. But
he's pitching game 1 tomorrow.
Well, I'll be watching that while we'll be watching Anthony Finkel's comment about Sportswire crew going to a Mets game this season. We'll certainly, I'm sure, have details about that. John Gonzalez has to come. I think John's a Yankees fan, though, but we'll find out. I'll come back to some of the baseball stuff in a second, but I got to get Randy Dillon here. Randy, I know I'd love to talk more on the NHL, but I'll get you in for a few minutes here. Unfortunately,
I just want to ask one question about baseball, though, that we're on the topic, because I know the Blue Jays this week, they made a big change firing their
yes, they did.
coach. So I want to kind of get your guys' opinions on how you think this is going to wrap up for the Blue Jays, because here in Canada, that's all we hear about, but I know right now they're in tough.
That's an interesting point. I'll let some of the guys jump in first before I give my thoughts. I have a few thoughts.
I thought maybe it was, maybe it wasn't right, but you know what? There were high expectations for Toronto coming into this season. So for them to be 14, 15 games out of first place, Yeah, they had to do something. And you know what? You're not going to fire the team. So who gets the axe? It's going to be the manager. The GM was probably feeling heat from the owner. So the manager now let's see what kind of effect it's going to have on the team and what is going to be their next move. Obviously, Benintendi is not going to be an option anymore. So, but they were looking at him a month ago. You heard Toronto looking at Benintendi because they wanted left-handed bats. So let's see what they go after now.
I was surprised, but and Chris, kind of counter arguing your point. They're not 14 games out of first place because they're struggling. Now, should they be better than 48 and 43? I think so.
Yeah,
but it's not because they're struggling. It's because the Yankees are having this outrageous season. So I didn't quite understand the firing of Charlie Montoyo unless there was a clear rift between front office and coaching staff, which is very possible. And they use we're not playing great as okay. Let's axe the manager.
I did hear there were issues in the locker room with him and the players, right, Randy? Have you heard any of that?
Yeah, something like that, because I know they took a big trip to Seattle and they just did. I heard it didn't go well at all the last weekend. Seattle's not one of the greatest teams, but that they were thinking it was a game they should have won. They lost all four, so I guess that was the camel that broke the straw back. But you got it right. The expectation for the Jays this year, they were hyping them up like how they normally hype up the Maple Leafs after they win a first game. They're going to plan the parade. But
don't compare them to the Maple Leafs. I mean, that would almost be an insult, I think, even to anybody to be compared to the Maple Leafs in terms of lack of success in the postseason. But it was a Blue Jays team that they finished the season very strong last year, went 90-plus games and had arguably one of the best kind of middle-of-the lineups in all of baseball. And you thought with some of the moves they made and we spoke about him here quite a bit on Sportzwire Radio in the offseason, we thought that they were going to be right there with the Yankees and everybody else in there. So, I mean, some of it I could definitely see why, too. And Anthony Finkel gives you a shout-out, Randy. So Anthony Finkel is happy to tune into it. And Anthony Finkel was telling me when he was at my house earlier this week how much of a big fan he was. He was always looking forward to seeing you, and we've got you here, and I'll get a thought on wrestling from you in a little while as well because I got to mix that in. But I do want to talk about the NHL for a minute because there are some moves. Yes, I'll get to Goudreau. Yes, I'll get to Palat. Obviously, locals make some shakeups. Obviously, Ryan Strome and Frank Vetrano are no longer Rangers, but I want to start off with the New York Islanders because I feel like with the New York Islanders, I heard all this stuff about Lou Lamoriello. I even saw the owner, John Ledecky, tell me and tell everybody else that they have a plan. But the plan right now for the New York Islanders seems to be, I don't know, I guess the old adage used to be when Van Halen, before Eddie Van Halen would die for years, and Van Halen wouldn't tour. They wouldn't go out there and play. And the news that they would say is, well, no news is good news in Van Halen land because Van Halen wasn't touring. I think with the New York Islanders, I guess with Lou Lamoriello and John Ledecky and Scott Malkin, that no news is good news because I think the New York Islanders right now might be the biggest losers in all of this offseason free agent sweepstakes. Your take on that, Randy?
Yeah, I agree. They are tough right now, the Islanders. They were after Goudreau, but the Islanders, we've talked about this before, and Justin and I discussed as well in the recent Hockey Fan Chat episode.
Which I haven't got yet, by the way.
It's coming.
Oh, okay, good. Want to make sure. This one I want to hear.
There are teams that have players, a bunch of players signed on $5 million contract with cap hit. They don't have much room to wait. At the deadline, they weren't active. Like they should have stripped off some of the veteran Clutterbug Parise. Instead, they give them 1-year extension. Varlamov still there on the final year of the deal. So they're tied with all this money, but they're not getting anywhere. And they're kind of now, I feel, taking a step backwards where last year the hope was to go compete for a Stanley Cup.
Right, we had you on last year in the summer when we had you on. We were doing Saturdays. We're like, okay, well, this is a team that we're expecting after back-to-back conference finals will, go out there and do some big things, and never came to fruition, really.
Now this is a team going next year where how are they going to fare under a new head coach in Lane Lambert? How are they going to fare in a very tough Metro division where I think out of all these teams in the Metro are competitive? Like even Columbus now adding Goudreau, they actually
Well,
can play
Columbus
some
is a
solid
game
hockey.
changer. Listen, I mean, there's no question. I'm going to get to that in a second. And John Gonzalez says, "Wake me up when we talk about the Lions." So see you in August, then, John. See you then, because there ain't going to be any Lions talk until probably the middle of August. And Anthony Finkel says, "Rip Eddie Van Halen, amazing guitarist, absolutely no question about it." If everybody who learned how to play guitar, you all probably learned to play Eruption in some capacity, but. I mean, good points there. I'll get to Justin in a second, Randy, because I did want to ask you then on the local end of it, what do you think first on the Rangers? They lose a few players, and also the New Jersey Devils get a player. I know it wasn't quite the player that they wanted, but I know my very good friend James DiGiacomo, who runs the Tampa Bay Lightning fan page on Instagram, was actually pretty broken up about the fact that he's going to lose Palat to the New Jersey Devils. I think that's a nice move, but talk about the other locals and some of your thoughts on their offseason so far.
For sure. So the Rangers, I think they did a decent job.
Okay.
They got that second line center in Trocheck now.
Mm-hmm.
A 7-year deal is going to be interesting when we see him play in the 34th, the final couple years of that deal. But this team in the window to win now, so they had to do what they had to do. Add a veteran in Yaroslav Halak as the backup.
I like the Halak move. I think that's a good move.
We'll see, because I know last year in Vancouver it was just a nightmare.
He'll be playing the Islanders a bunch of times. They'll start him and he'll shut him out. Just you watch. He'll find the lightning in the bottle.
Yeah, so
you just
and the Rangers now just gotta try to get Kako signed, but we all know the drama in Game 6 where he was a healthy scratch. What's gonna happen there? And if we go to the Devils, I know Justin and I talked about disappointing, but we didn't get a chance to talk about the Palat deal because we recorded the episode a day before that. But I think for the Islanders, it's a good move. They get a top 6 forward now, not the star power near Johnny Gaudreau, but this does fill a hole for this team. It does help them really Palat up and down. Let's not forget, Palat was a big part of Tampa Bay's cups.
He scored, 20-something goals in the last 3 Stanley Cup
runs? And if you go back
27.
to the 2015 playoff, the triplet line, they refer to him, Kucherov, Johnson, and Palat. These 3 players have they had a big pack, and I think Palat in every playoff, he's had a big moment there. So they're getting a player for the Devils who knows how to win, who knows how to win the battle, and can teach them experience there.
I think it's a good move. I actually like the move, and I'm going to get to Justin on a second. The Rangers also lose Andrew Kopp as well to the Red Wings. So Red Wings certainly get a couple of players to help them. Also, Ryan Strome, sayonara. Also, we see as well Frank Vetrano. I know a lot of Ranger fans wanted to see him stay, but I think that's the curse of Salicata. That's the curse of Salicata, because Salicata kept saying on WFAN all through, we got to keep him. We got to keep Vetrano. Anytime Salicata says something, the opposite happens. He jinxed the Mets because he said, by the way, Brad, the reason why we're lacking confidence is because this guy Salicata, this doofus, by the way, who's on WFAN, said that the New York Mets, the division, he said it was May 31st. Division is over. Forget about it. We've won. We're up 10 games. Don't worry about it. It's all over. Forget about it. Don't worry about the Braves. And next thing you know, we're a game and a half going into Atlanta. So listen, Sal Licata, also same thing. He said Rangers were they're up 2-0 against the Lightning. The series is over. It's over. It's going to be over. I'm feeling great. Yeah, Lightning, no big deal. No big deal. And then he said the same thing about Frank Vetrano. We got to keep him. So Salicata, this guy is a total doofus. In fact, Salicata, you have no use for you on Sportswire. I'm not even a Rangers fan. I just think Salicata, I know, Justin, you're banned by him. So in that case, by process of elimination, he would be banned from Sportswire Radio. But I can guarantee you that we have more followers in England than Mr. Licata does. I can promise you that, to say the least. But let me get to a few other funny comments in here before I get to Justin, because this is now getting me fired up. Anthony Finkel says, I accidentally drove through Newark 2 weeks ago. What a dump it's become. I haven't been to Newark, I think, in about 3 or 4 years, and I probably wouldn't be going into Newark anytime soon. So thank you for that. John Gonzalez says the whole state is becoming dumb. Well, my mother's going there. So my mother's going there. So I guess that would mean she'll find out. LOL, doofus, LOL. WFAN went downhill when the Pope left. Yeah, I mean, the fan is, honestly, they're all like idiots on the station now. It's just, you listen to it for time there. It's just, but let's get to Sportswire Radio, because we have the better people here. Justin Gianelli, Devils offseason so far. What do you think?
Listen, I know there's a lot of people disappointed with the whole Johnny Gaudreau situation, but I think reality of the matter is it was more of a media-driven perception. You know, despite the fact that, yes, Tom Fitzgerald submitted a serious offer, and they had serious interest. But the fact that they were favorites pretty much the whole time, I think, was more media driven than anything.
Hmm.
And he goes to Columbus on I believe it's $9.5 million per over the next 7 years, equals that to about $68 million. And the fact of the matter is, the Devils are now not tied up with that at the back end of it, and you get Palat for $6 million about over 5 years, and he brings the veteran leadership like everybody talks about, and he also is a guy who's going to go down towards the net and score the dirty goal. He's going to crash the net. He's going to bang home the rebound. And with his prowess for scoring in the playoffs, you need a guy who could rise to the occasion in the biggest of moments. And just getting a guy like Andre Palat, and you mentioned somebody you knew from who writes about Tampa Bay Lightning. He's heartbroken.
Yep.
A
James
lot of
DiGiacomo, very good friend of mine.
a lot of people from Tampa Bay are really upset that he's not coming back. And
Yeah.
this is a fan favorite from the Tampa Bay Lightning.
He was a clutch player. He reminded me a little bit of a player the New Jersey Devils had a long time ago, Claude Lemieux. Very similar. Just a great clutch player. One of those guys, slightly different, but in terms of what they brought to the team.
And look, I think if you put him on a line with Nico Hischier and Dawson Mercer, I think they're going to be lethal. Now, who plays on the wing next to Jack Hughes? That'll remain to be seen. Tom Fitzgerald has clearly indicated this team is nowhere near done. There's a lot of work to do, and he understands that. And he even admitted today that this team might have been in a better position last year had they gotten halfway decent goaltending. He recognized that they were down to their 5th, 6th, 7th string goaltenders. I mean, Nico Dawes, who the Devils covet as a goaltending prospect, clearly not ready for the NHL stage. None of these guys that came up were ready for the NHL stage. So right now you have 3 goaltenders on the roster. You have the guy that they just acquired, Vitek Vanacek, and then you still have Mackenzie Blackwood, and you're not sure about the health of it, but you still have Jonathan Bernier under contract. So, I mean, if you can get a healthy combo of those two, the goaltending is going to be light years better. I mean, you have another year of Dougie Hamilton anchoring the defense. We'll see what they do in terms of defense replacing Subban and what they do there. They did sign Brendan Smith as well.
Yep.
To a 1-year deal. No, I'm sorry, a 2-year deal. I think it's like $1.5 million per. A 2-year deal for Brendan Smith. So the pieces are starting to formulate together for the Devils, and with the uncertainty around the Islanders, the Flyers going to be bad. And still, despite Johnny Gaudreau going to Columbus, there's still an unknown about how good Columbus can really be. Their goaltending situation's not all that great. It gives the Devils the opportunity to start rising a little bit more in the division. Obviously, we'll have to see what the offseason continues to look like, and how they fill some of their other needs. Still plenty of cap space. I mean, they still have to take care of Jesper Bratt. We know his contract is going to be a little bit hefty. He's probably going to get a long-term deal. But the pieces are being put together, and I think honestly, for the first time in a while, I see the plan with the Devils, and I see the future building, and good things are going to come.
I definitely think that's the case. And before I get to Randy, I have a comment which I really don't know why I'm going to post this comment, but I'll post it because Anthony Finkel has posted it. And he says, hey, we can't go the entire show without mentioning Zach Wilson and I won't say what he's trying to say, but his mom's best friend. The kid's a winner. That's all I'm going to say. You can definitely read about it on Twitter. You can read about it on Facebook, I'm sure. But
one thing of note, sportsbooks are taking in lots of Zach Wilson for MVP bets. right now.
Well, he might be MVP of certain people's mothers or certain dreams, but I'm going to leave that to that. So let's change topics because, Randy, interesting points that Justin had made, and also specifically, and I know John Gonzalez talked about it here about Johnny Gaudreau. Johnny Hockey, as some may say, he goes to Columbus, and also to a lesser extent, Claude Giroux goes to the Senators. So, give me your thoughts on these two moves. I don't know if they were necessarily expected to the destination spots, but what do you think this means for those players, and also, most importantly, for those teams?
To talk with Claude Giroux first. There was always a rumbling he was going to go to Ottawa. He's an Ottawa boy. He was grown up there in that market, so it just makes sense for him to go there. For the Ottawa Senators, getting a player like that, and then also a week before they get Alex DeBrincat. In between there, they get Cam Talbot in the goaltending situation. Ship Matt Murray off to Toronto. They re-signed Josh Norris. Ottawa looks like a very good team that can compete next year for a playoff spot. I don't know if they can take that spot for Toronto unless their goaltending goes really south, but they have a lot of firepower. Just adding Giroux and DeBrincat there. And let's not forget, you got Tim Schutzel. You got a player like Eric. You got Norris there. Then another player, I think it's Brandstrom, the forward, and he's very good, underrated player there. So this Ottawa team, up and down their top six, is very deadly there. Now they have finally addressed the goal. He was steady goaltending from Cam Talbot. We go to Columbus. Before I talk to Johnny about the team, I just want to get into Johnny Gaudreau, where I know the reaction in Calgary. People are kind of just losing their mind, saying out of all the teams, you pick Columbus. He's a free agent. It was announced the day before. It's his decision where he wants to go, and I think he got that decision there, and he didn't want to go back to Calgary. Now, like Justin said, the media was hyping it up, but he made the decision, and he felt Columbus was going to be the best one. The Columbus Blue Jackets have a superstar they can build their team around now, and now they have someone they can market to the fan base, market to the attendance, to other teams, saying, hey, watch out for Johnny Gaudreau. Because I think for the longest time, the team was Rick Nash, and Rick Nash was a great player. But the level at Johnny Gaudreau and the level he brings it, I think
they
it's
had
completely
Werenski,
different.
they had Seth Jones. There was players.
But they never had someone that
Panarin.
long term. Right.
Panarin,
Bobrovsky was there, but then they decided that Johnny Gaudreau ain't leaving anytime soon. So this is something you can media build. And then I know for the first few years he's going to be there, it's going to be tough for Columbus, but we'll see how they build around and also what they ultimately do with Patrick Laine. Does he want to stay now? Because now, guess what? You have a great playmaker with you that can get you the puck.
I'll tell you what, they played a little better than they were kind of expected to play. And if you look at them now, kind of that second tier of the Metro where we see Columbus, the Devils, the Islanders, and the Flyers. Columbus legitimately, I think, could compete for a wild card. I think there's no reason or question why that they couldn't not compete for a wild card with some of the moves they made. And the brute force Brad Weiss, Anthony Finkel, I don't know if he was trying to get your thoughts on it, but then John Gonzalez kind of chimed in. But I'm going to tell you, don't incriminate yourself if you have any thoughts about Zach Wilson's mom. That's all I'm going to say.
I got just about no comment on this situation. I've heard what's going on, but ultimately, I got no comment, and I'm only worried about how Zach Wilson is doing on the football field right now, and hopefully, whatever situation this has become, it just gets resolved. But quite a story, I will say that.
All I'll say, without incriminating myself or anybody here on Sportswire Radio, especially because we do work with a wrestling company called GT Ministries, and the person who runs that is a born-again Christian, so I'm sure he would find out Mr. Gareth Angel. He would message me because he messages me repeatedly throughout the day on Facebook about many other things. Just looking at his mother, Mr. Wilson, all I'll say is that Mr. Wilson's mother is definitely one of those. If you ever seen the video Stacy's mom from the Fountains of Wayne, let's just say that she would definitely be a prime candidate to maybe replace the character in that video. And I believe that was Rachel Hunter, if I'm not mistaken, so who wasn't too bad in her own right.
Wasn't it Pamela Anderson in that video?
I thought Rachel Hunter was in it, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember.
It was Rachel Hunter. I think that was Rachel Hunter.
I have a point to steer us a little bit back.
That would be excellent. Please do.
Because Randy was talking about Patrick Laine. I don't know that they can afford him at this point. So right now, putting the Gaudreau contract on the books, they sit at $79 million, which leaves them with about $3 million of cap space. So I think Line becomes a prime trade candidate. He's an RFA at this point.
They have some players on the LTIR that I think they haven't activated yet. Now I don't know if these players are going to be on the
So
roster.
they're going to lightning the system and cheat the
They're going to pull a Tampa. But I don't know. But
or maybe the Devils could get involved in the Line A.
Exactly, like Patrick Line name. If they don't keep him, like at this point, it gets interesting because you're right. The Devils, he could be a really good fit there. With some other teams, I could see him going to as well. Thinking of that, but Calgary could be one if they think, okay, we'll take Line there to replace Gaudreau, but that's not the player you want. But we'll see.
Well, also, I am not going to repeat what Anthony Finkel has just said here, but what I will confirm for those that might be looking in for any reasons why about Stacey's mom, I am being confirmed by a reliable source. Thank you for this. That it was Rachel Hunter.
Yes, I just looked at it myself.
All right. So I'm glad somebody else
Which one
said that.
had Pamela Anderson was the one, not Sum 41. What's that other band?
Well, not Blink 182. I thought Blink 182 had
No. Oh man. Completely Miserable. Who sang that song? Oh, Lit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember Lit.
Remember, like they're really small and they're going around her body and stuff on the video.
Yeah, I remember Lit. I remember. No, I remember Lit. Actually,
I always get those two, but that's Pamela Anderson in that one.
Yeah, I remember Lit very well actually. And Anthony Finkel says, "Well, John Gonzalez says, pardon me, Mr. Angel, Mr. Finkel is a bad." Oh, he means to Gareth Angel. Yeah, Gareth Angel. Knowing Mr. Angel, yeah, he would definitely, for whatever reason, stumble upon this, and he would have some questions. And Anthony Finkel says Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah, okay. I don't know what's the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Are you going to see them in August?
What's that about?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, knowing. Yeah, are you seeing them, Anthony Finkel? Is that what it is?
I think it's August 5th. They're at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
Now that ticket side point has got to be, I'm sure, an arm and a leg.
That's a hot ticket.
Yeah, I looked at it.
Are you going to go, Chris?
I was thinking about it because I've never seen them. I'm not a huge fan, but I would have went. But then I said,
I've heard they're a very hot live show. I've never seen them.
I'm sure they are.
Well, their bass player is an incredible bass player, and their guitarist, who's back again with them, is, John Frusciante. He's like a virtuoso, and the drummer, he's actually playing on Ozzy Osbourne's latest album, which I don't know how he's still alive. So you can tell that they're a great musicians band. But
that's Will Ferrell, the drummer, right?
Touche here. And John Gonzalez, of course, has to bring it into saying no hotter ticket than the Lions versus Steelers, which the brute force, I know you're going to be calling it for us here on Sportswire Radio. So,
Lions. Yeah, so is John Gonzalez. He's supposed to be on the cast too. Yeah.
And Anthony Finkel says, gotta catch, flea, slap the base. Yeah, slap base is absolutely one of those bases who doesn't play without the pick. So very quickly, Randy, before I get to closing thoughts from the gang, because we're basically going off the cliff here, give me a couple of things you're watching when it comes to the rest of the offseason. Also, one or two under-the-radar moves you think, and then we'll go to closing thoughts.
Absolutely. The one thing I'm watching at this time is Patrick Kane. Where is he going to
Oh, my God. The Blackhawks are basically...
Because they are...
Did you see the meme on Twitter with Will Smith at the end of The Fresh Prince? That's kind of Patrick Kane right at the last episode.
Pretty much.
I saw a meme of them photoshopping Kane's head on Will Smith's body in the empty room.
There was someone saying on Twitter, I saw a thing that if you're in Chicago and you're wearing anything Hawks memorabilia, be careful. They might ask you to be playing for them next year because they literally have no one. But Patrick Kane, the one I'm looking at, and the reason I'm saying there are teams that could really use his act, and the team I'm going to be really looking at, and I don't know if they're really considering this or not, but rather than the Calgary Flames trying to sign Adam Kadri for a 7-year, $9.5 million
I wouldn't do.
Contract.
I would not do it.
I would not do that. I would try to do anything I can to get a guy like Patrick Kane. Their window, if they can replace Kane with Johnny Gaudreau, their window is still open. Maybe they can get a top 4 defenseman, but a player like Patrick Kane can definitely put you back in that conversation, whether it's a year or not. But keep an eye on him. And some of the quiet under the move radars, the under the move radar no one's really talking about is the Detroit Red Wings somehow taking David Perron from the St.
That was
Louis
a nice
Blues.
couple
Good
of
move
moves
for
they
them.
did. Yep.
Like Andrew Kopp as well. Like the Red Wings did a great job, but David Perron has been up and down teams. He's been through playoff battles, won a cup with St. Louis, went to a final with Vegas. So the guy's experienced. He's been around young guys. Look what he did with the Blues for guys like Cairo and Cashin. So he's going to have an influence there in Detroit, and Detroit's going to be a very good team next year. Competitive, and I think that could possibly be fighting a playoff spot, maybe even stealing.
Could be a tough division. Could be a tough division though, because you got the 2 Florida teams who are still going to be up there.
Well, Boston takes
we've documented how much Ottawa has really improved. You got to figure Toronto's still going to be somewhat.
Toronto's going to be in there, but their goaltending is now very concerning.
It's not a great situation.
Yeah.
You don't view Toronto as a true cup threat, but a playoff contender, absolutely. So you're talking about the Red Wings maybe now being the 5th team in that division, leaping over Boston. I think Boston will really take a step back.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I think Florida, Tampa Bay. I think Toronto, and then
you got Buffalo as the doormat.
And then Ottawa, and then Montreal. If you have a healthy Carey Price, anything's possible. Let's put it that way.
Real tough.
Yeah,
division.
Montreal. I mean, listen, you never know what you're going to get from them. And a couple more comments before I get to closing thoughts. John Gonzalez says Kane to the Islanders. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, how?
Blue couldn't get
somebody I know.
Hey John, if you could be a salary cap aficionado and figure out how that works under their salary cap structure, then you should be their GM.
Before I say anything,
there's just no way that can work. They're right now $11 million under the cap, and that's not considering any RFAs that they have, any other pieces.
I think they're going to be the roster. What you're seeing right now, there might be some minor tweaks.
I would be worried if John Gonzalez wants that trade, because John Gonzalez think what the Knicks have done is a good thing, and I know Brad Weiss can comment on that thing. Some of the moves the Knicks made. So if John Gonzalez want to do moves like that, the Islanders might be going down faster than anything.
Yeah, I got a feeling, and Chris is going to get mad. And obviously, I'm a diehard Islanders fan as much as Chris is, and we'll get to closing thoughts in a second here. But I mean, I just don't have a good feeling about this Islander offseason. When I heard Trotz come out and say, well, I expected to be the coach of the team, and then they fired him a little bit after that. And then kind of this offseason here where it was kind of put upon that this team was going to make significant changes, and we've got nothing here. I mean, are we back to the Garth Snow years? I mean, even with Snow,
they can't be. They got to do something, because they just built this new arena. They got to do something to fill it up.
And the big thing is, Matt Barzal needs a new contract extension. Are you willing to? Now, thankfully, he's still an RFA, so you still have it right. But do you really want to get him to sign a 1-year deal, then walk to free agency next year and say, I don't want to be here at all? And then you absolutely have nothing at that point.
Well, I tell you what, they're going to be on the spot, because if they come out and have a really slow start to the season again, I mean, they're going to have, listen, the knives are going to be out them. There's definitely going to be, the Sharks are going to be coming for them, because
then Lou's on the hot seat. Then Lou's
and he should be, because you know what? Listen,
Absolutely.
And he should be real quick, because you know what? Not for nothing. Yes, he's been GM of the year and he's won his Stanley Cups, but the last time he won a cup was 2003. Toronto, he didn't win anything. He hadn't won anything with the Devils in a long, long time. I mean, so. And John Gonzalez says, oh, yes, on the Red Wings. Yes, Red Wings should be competitive. I agree. Don't worry, Randy. James Doan's brother is buying the Calgary Flames.
Okay.
John, my name is not spelled like that, so you got to get the spelling better.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm with you.
I don't know who he's talking to, actually.
You know what they tell you at this point in radio before we get on here? They would call this the Wolfman Jack hour time. So that's why I think guys like Anthony Finkel and John Gonzalez, it's going into that point where they've probably, it's getting time. It's getting time for them. It's that time. It's the weekend. And, I had a guest on. I'll tell you guys a quick story very quickly. I think Anthony was on the stream. I had a wrestler on, Nathan Gunn, and he was coming on because he'd won a match the weekend before. So we're thinking, all right, we're real serious, and he's going on the interview, and he had his third beer. He had 3 beers on the interview. He was drinking, and it was like, oops, oh, yeah, I'm drunk. So, yeah, I was drunk. He was actually coming on to talk about his win, and he was hammered. You could tell he was hammered. He was just, well, that's how it goes. It's, and Anthony Finkel chimes in and he chuckles. All right, so I think we've got what we've wanted to talk about here. We could always get some different thoughts here and closing thoughts, but let's wrap up here because obviously we've had a lot of fun here as always on Sportswire Radio. And Rob Maraska will be back with us next week. He is not feeling well. He is under the weather, so we will have him back, but we certainly didn't miss him. And also want to get to very quickly Clayton Kershaw. Justin, you want to mention that? You can mention that in your closing thoughts. I mentioned it now.
Let's just say Clayton Kershaw's in the midst of something pretty special right now.
Okay, so we
That's
don't
all
want
I'll
to jinx it. Yeah, we don't want to jinx it. I'll go really quickly and get to some baseball scores. Other than that game, I have Padres 5-3 over the Diamondbacks. I also have here some other scores of note, which I just had here, and for whatever reason, I don't have them. Oh, we got here Brewers 5-2 over the Giants. Certainly, the Giants do look like they are pretty much collapsing. Rockies beat the Pirates 13-2. Cardinals get a win over the Reds 7-3. White Sox beat the Twins. So, hey, listen, the White Sox, John Gonzalez, you said with disappointments, but can't count them out. Athletics get a rare victory, and boy, how about those Mariners? What a run here. Orioles run is over. They beat the Rays 5-4. Guardians get a win over the Tigers. Blue Jays do beat the Royals 8-1. Once again, those Braves keep on winning. Obviously, we mentioned Red Sox and Yankees earlier on a little while ago. Phillies get another win. Mets obviously didn't lose. So, hey, I'm happy about that because, well, they were rained out. So, standings right now updated. Yankees 62-28, 12 games ahead of the Rays. Boston and Toronto 14.5 back. Baltimore 17 behind. The Central is a 3-team race between the Twins, Guardians, and White Sox. Twins are up 2.5 over Cleveland and the White Sox. Astros are only up 10 games over the Mariners, but the real race there right now is that they are 3.5 behind the Yankees for the top spot. Mets right now 2 games up over the Braves with 2 games in hand. Phillies 9 back, Marlins 12.5. Brewers 2.5 over the Cardinals. Dodgers are pretty much in firm control over the Padres 9.5, and the Giants are pretty much on a rope. Soap on a rope, as Chicken Foot would famously sing. So it looks like those are some of your standings. All right, so all great stuff here on Sportswire Radio, and certainly it has been interesting. And also Anthony Finkel's final thought. My final thought, great show tonight, gentlemen. Great having the band back together. Let's get together soon, Long Island or Staten Island, or as a bonus, Brooklyn, because Brooklyn is the middle ground. So Brooklyn's kind of like between Long Island and Staten Island.
That's
so
true.
Brooklyn is always okay. So Southern Brooklyn on the Belt Parkway, always is the middle ground. So I'm always down for that as well. Always love Brooklyn. And Joe Bosham says, great show. Again, thank you, Joey. Also, happy birthday. Thank you for your support, Joey, over all the years, all of your support and friendship. I really, really appreciate it. I hope to see you soon, Joey. Hope to see you, obviously, whether it's in the friendly confines of South Beach and Staten Island or by me. Definitely want to see you soon. John Gonzalez says, on a serious note, great to be back this week. Great show as usual. There's so many people on Sportswire Radio tuned in. We had so many shows that so many people tuned in. We had so many new people, new fans, new friends, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. We've gotten a lot of new fans, and I really appreciate that. Humbled by all the support. So let's get to closing thoughts here. Chris, I want to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug, share, say. I can't thank you enough. Anything you want to plug, Talking Rivals, Liftoff Jets, whatever else, and fire away, and great to have you back.
Great to be back this week. I'm going to miss next week, too. I'll be out in Colorado for a family member passed away. So
I'm so sorry.
We're going there.
My thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, my final thoughts, though, on the island is I think if the Islanders, no matter what they do, if they do anything, I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, Lou has to go. Right?
No, there's no question about that. I don't want to hear about Lou being a genius.
No.
I don't want to hear the Blue and Orange Army. I don't want to hear Will Cerrucci, Tom LaFaso. I don't want to hear Charlie with the orange wig. I don't want to see all my Islander friends. I don't want to hear them telling me about Lou and Lou this, because if they don't make the playoffs, he's out the door. I agree 100%.
Absolutely. So that's my final thought on that. With Talking Rivals, we're definitely going to be wrapping up the Yankees-Red Sox series for sure, and talk about what we're going to be, what the teams are going to be looking for heading into the All-Star break. Trade deadline only a couple of weeks away, so check out for that episode Monday or Tuesday, and then Liftoff Jets. We're just going to, finish talking about the offseason, previewing the last couple of positions. We might actually have a guest on this week, our good friend Coach Koo again. We've had him on before.
Yes, I've heard
we
him.
might have him on this week. If I'm not there, Charmin will take care of it. But look out for that as well.
Sure.
And that's about it.
I appreciate all that. And of course, you can follow the Liftoff Jets on Twitter at Liftoff Jets. Talking Rivals on Twitter, also talkingrivals.com. Also go to the YouTube page. You can catch the guys on Spotify, iTunes, a whole number of different places. They do a phenomenal job. I enjoyed the show this week. Also enjoyed the Liftoff Jets, and we'll definitely miss you next week. But I do give your family my thoughts and prayers, and anything I can do, please let me know, and I'd
Thank
be
you.
happy to do that. So
Appreciate
we'll
that.
definitely see you in 2 weeks. And Justin, I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, share, say, and can't thank you enough for all that you do for us. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, good to be back with you once again. Again, just very excited with with what the Mets did in Atlanta. All I want for them to do is just finish strong. Win the series, bare minimum. Take the 2 out of the next 3, bare minimum.
Fair.
If if you sweep the 4-game series, that's great, but that's always something that's tough to do. So if the Cubs win a game, not the end of the world. And look, all the Mets have to do is win 1 game, and they go into the All-Star break in first place. But I would like to win 3 out of 4 here. Feeling good. You got the 4 Met All-Stars with Marte, McNeil, Alonso, and Edwin Diaz, and my final point, and I'm going to continue. This is going to be a trend for the rest of the season and until something gets done. But for the rest of our shows, there will not be a Sportswire Friday night show without me saying extend Brandon Nimmo. There are few players who are more important to this franchise than Brandon Nimmo right now, and he must be taken care of.
He's very much what you'd call a high energy player. He's one of those guys that when he's always been healthy in the lineup's better, and he's a guy that makes the players around him better. So he's the kind of guy that I couldn't agree with you more. And also, I've actually sat with Brandon Nimmo twice at Islander games when I had Islander season tickets. He was actually in my section, so I should probably pull out one of my photos one of these days. I'll have to find it, but I do have 2 photos with Brandon Nimmo. But no, all kidding aside, great player. Huge
And look,
part
I
of that.
understand. I understand that the Mets have there's plenty of players who would potentially need to be taken care of in the offseason. Guys that you want to keep around, like an Edwin Diaz, like guys in the pitching staff. But the one guy I'm hammering home right now, extend Brandon Nimmo.
Well, I never thought I'd say this. Edwin Diaz, boy, I hope we keep him for the next
You know what?
couple of years. I can't
I'm in
believe
the
I'm
same. I'm in the
saying
same
this.
camp. I'm in the same camp. They 100% need to bring him back too. But I'm really pushing the extend Brandon Nimmo campaign
No,
right now.
Nimmo, his problem has been just staying healthy. If he's healthy, he's always been fine. He just can't consistently stay
And
healthy.
and you know what? Knock on wood, we've had that from him in the first half.
Yep.
So
No. I think in 2019 when we won, when he was in the lineup, when he's healthy, he's always been in there. Great
So-
stuff, and of course the baseball banter you can definitely follow as well. Jay Gianelli 91. Also, I know on Instagram, also Twitter, Jay Gianelli. So make sure you follow Justin for all the great
Yep,
stuff.
and it is out on and my latest baseball banter, which I have to get to you. I thought I gave it to you last night, but
Don't worry about it. Well, I'll
I
play it
totally
on the weekend.
Yeah, but it is out on all the platforms. It was more of a Mets centric podcast, talking about the Keith Hernandez retirement, and then I added in, because I waited to record it until last night. I added in my thoughts on the Mets Braves series. So, very Mets heavy in this podcast. It kind of looking back on the past week and really giving the Mets credit for bouncing back after honestly what was a very lackluster weekend, because even Saturday's game that they won, and I was there, I just had a weird lackluster feeling with this team.
I feel like even when they beat
teams
Texas
doing
2 out of
quite
3
enough.
instances, I couldn't agree. I felt like even when they beat the Reds and they beat Texas, it was like not impressive. They didn't have
I felt fine with the Texas and Cincinnati series. I didn't come away with a good taste. I did come away with a good taste after the Miami series.
But the
Now,
Marlins series, they were lucky to get 2 games. They were lucky. They won the
I
first one against
agree.
me, but they were lucky to get 2.
I agree, but they started to play better baseball against the Braves, and last night they took advantage of bad pitching, and that was
Yeah,
quote unquote
I
the
agree.
Cubs' best starter, Keegan Thompson. So, I mean, so what does that mean for the rest of the series? Are the Mets just going to bludgeon their starting pitching? I hope so. Let's go out there and Let's go out there and knock Marcus Stroman out in the second inning.
I
Please.
want to get all three.
Please. There's nothing more that I would love to see Marcus Stroman walking back to the dugout because he's getting pulled in the second inning.
Oh, I hope so. Listen, I want W's and W's and W's and all that. So great stuff, Justin. Looking forward to having you next week. We'll also recap the All-Star game, Home Run Derby, get into that as well. But Randy, I turn it over to you, my friend. Always love having you. Always love the excitement you bring for us here. I liked a little mixing up some hockey. We had some fun. We also talked Stacy's mom for whatever reason that came in, Zach Wilson's mom. So that's kind of what Friday night brings for you. But I give you the floor. Anything you want to plug, share, and say, and the floor is yours. And fire away, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, always great to be out with you guys. Yes, the free agency, the offseason has started. Things are going to get quiet now, but teams can still make moves. I expect things to get quiet after. Still waiting to see where Nazem Kadri and John Klingberg sign. But for any team out there, do not give Nazem Kadri a 7-year, $9.5 million deal. You are going to regret it. But for us, the Hockey Fan Chat, we're just finishing editing an episode we did with Justin. We'll be releasing that either tonight to you, Tom, or Sunday the latest.
Sunday's fine.
And then you can follow us at Twitter at Randy Dillon, DhillOn. And for John Gonzalez, my name is spelled Randy, not how you had it. And then you can also follow it at our page, the Hockey Fan Chat. And then I know you guys were talking about the Islanders, how they're doing. I'm worried about how the Caps are going to do next year for myself. They signed Darcy Kemper, but I don't trust him that much. They got Dylan Strome, a nice move, but their GM's on the hot seat as well because he hasn't done anything for them since winning the Cup in 2018. So we'll see what happens. Otherwise, they're gonna have one upset Russian there in Washington. That's for sure.
Well, you know what? Since the Capitals won the Cup, you think about it. Carolina comes back in 2019, down 3-1, 2-0. 2020, we saw what happened with the Islanders in the bubble, and last year and the year before that, and it's a Capitals team that's had several first-round early exits into the postseason.
And Tom, I kid you not, and Randy knows this because I messaged him, privately as we were setting up the Zoom. I kid you not, literally 25, 30 minutes after we signed off was when the Palat news broke.
So it's like,
I kid you not. Literally the minute we sign off, the Devils break the news. I'm like,
that timing.
That's how
we get a Ryan Strome signing in the middle of it, but not Palat.
That was the only time. That was the only time I interrupted him talking was Ryan Strome. There's a base hit for the Angels.
Well, there you go. Well, that was the special thing there that was broken, and that's how it goes. Listen, before I get to the brute force, that's how it always goes. When we used to do the shows back on just SoundCloud only, we'd always say, well, let's hope that nothing breaks after we go off the air, because we used to record at 3 o'clock, and news would usually end, whether it's in politics or sports. It would be 4 o'clock, 4:30. Then that's when everything would stop, and that would always be around that time. And a lot of times it would be our timing that something would happen. But that's here nor there. But we certainly didn't save the best for last, but we definitely saved the biggest for last. That is the brute force Brad Weiss. So I'm expecting some big, heavy-hitting, hard-hitting, brute-like comments here for his closing thoughts. So you know the drill, my friend. So the floor is yours, and fire away.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week of Friday Night Live here on Sportswire Radio. Thank you, Justin, Chris, Randy, for another great week as well. Definitely great to be back. I missed you guys last week, and I was at Citi Field supporting the Mets. I had some good seats, but I definitely missed being on the sports support, and since the Mets lost that game, it made me a little upset. But at the same time, as you see behind me, that word is in my head for every time I watch the New York Mets. So, with all that being said, you can find me on Instagram to see more of my confidence videos for you at BWeiss20, searching Brad Weiss 20 on Twitter, and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. So to start, I want to give a bunch of shout-outs, all in one to one program that I'm honored to work for, and that's Level Up Long Island, our AAU program run by the great Jesse Winter. Just set a program record in the spring season for 40 championships in the spring season, as well as our fifth grade team won the Nationals in Florida for being the best team in the fifth grade division in the country. To put that there. So we are doing phenomenal things with Level Up. I want to give a shout out to all those great champions of Level Up Long Island. You can follow us at Level Up _LI on all social media platforms. To continue with that, yours truly, of course, coaches with them, and I'm running weekly skills clinics every single week on Mondays in Levittown for ages going into third grades, going into eighth grade. So if you want more information, be sure to go to levelupli.com. I myself is teaching these clinics every single week, so if you want to learn from me, the brute force, make sure you get your kid into those clinics every Monday night. We'll be there. And as well with Level Up, we got another nice win last night with our men's league team. We are now undefeated in 3 seasons and looking to get our 3rd consecutive championship, led by our great team with program director Jesse Winter, Trevor Starr, Terrell Harris, Chris Coleman, amongst others. So we just got a squad, and Level Up Long Island is doing some big, big things. Anthony Finkel, you might be a little big for a 3rd grader. But
he's like really big. He was at my house this past weekend, and he's like really big. I mean, he's bigger than the last.
He's a big man. So I don't know if you blend in with the 3rd graders, but I can give you an individual session. So definitely excited for all the things with Level Up. Like I said, give us a follow at Level Up Long Island, Level Up _LI on all social media platforms. Once again, like we did to start the show, I want to congratulate the newest coach at St. Joseph's Long Island. We were definitely excited for AJ to get started at St. Joe's Long Island, so congratulations to him on that job. Also, I want to talk about this. Tomorrow morning, as early as 10 a.m., I'm actually working a junior Knicks clinic. So I'm actually working on behalf of the junior Knicks. I will support, all right, I am a Knicks fan after all, so I will be there supporting the kids who are going to be there for the junior Knicks. So I am excited for that. And for all of you people out there who are giving me all this damn nonsense about the New York Knicks being in first place in the Summer League, be quiet. No one cares about the Summer League. I'm happy to see some of our players playing well. And just because we won the championship in the Summer League, and that might be our biggest success in 20 years, that we won a Summer League championship, stop adding me about all this Knicks Summer League nonsense. It's the Summer League. So all the people that want to keep saying that, that's what I have to say to you. And my final thought about the New York Mets, once again, Tom Bryce, is I want to see Pete Alonso win that home run derby once again. Hopefully he will do so. I have a lot of confidence in that. And with that, all I have to say now, Tom Bryce, is what's wrong with being confident? Please. Good energy, confidence. I leave you with this word one more time. Confidence, Tom Bryce, in our New York Mets.
Well, we'll certainly see. I'll agree with you on one thing when it comes to watching Knicks Summer League. I used to to me, MSG would play it like so many times a day throughout the week. I just not even want to watch it. So I've tried, but I can't do Summer League. And Anthony Finkel chimes in here and says, Kevin Knox looked like the next KD in his first Summer League, and then look how that turned out. Joey Bostrom says, you guys rock. Looking forward to keeping in touch with us. So, yeah, Joey, definitely. You know where to find me. You can always message me, Joey. You've known me just about as long, if not longer, than Anthony Finkel. But all great stuff. Listen, we'll see the brute force. We'll see on confidence. We'll certainly say, I'll tell you, I'm confident, though, on the coach, our new coach of our SJC New York basketball team. Now, that's where I'll have confidence because I know our boys, and I know that our boys are going to have a big year. We'll see, though, about the Mets. We have some games upcoming. I'll just say one thing before we get out of here. Alonso can win the home run derby. Just don't do anything stupid at it. I want to see him in it, but just let's not pull a David Wright years ago. I know it's Alonso. It's not a David Wright, but let's just, make sure we do well and all that stuff. But obviously, I do want to thank everybody on Sportswire Radio right now who's tuning in with us. We are here with Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, Chris Bizet of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals Show, Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat, and the man who is confident, the man that is certainly confident is his middle name now, the brute force, Bradley Weiss, Brad Weiss, who you can follow again on Instagram at bweiss20, Brad Weiss20 on Twitter as well, Bradley Weiss on Facebook, also Snapchat. He is still on there. He is the confident man, of course, the legendary SJC New York Golden Eagle, also from the Level Up organization, Long Island Nets, LI Brew Crew. and, of course, Plainview JFK Boys JV team. But we will have a hard-hitting, packed full of shows on Sportswire Radio coming up. We will have a piece of business, sit-down marks, Pinstripe Chronicles, talking rivals throughout the overnight hour. We will then be live tomorrow night. We are streaming the GT Ministries Ready to Rumble show. If my voice holds up, I may do some commentary. We'll see about that. We will then also be back Sunday as well, and we'll have a action-packed full of shows for you all throughout the week on Sportswire Radio. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank John Gonzalez from the Sports Authorities Group. I want to thank Desmond Johnson from Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And I want to thank everybody that has tuned in and chimed in. Joey Bostrom. Also want to thank Anthony Finkel, Jamie Sanders. I want to thank Carlos Otoro Chavez. I want to thank Jason Facina. Can never forget Coach Facina. Also, Ted Cheney from the Wrestling Rewind podcast, who I didn't read his comment off. And Ted is always with us on Sportswire. So thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. I will be back here tomorrow afternoon, New York time. And I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you, everyone. Good night. And we'll be back with you tomorrow on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.